Karan, my friend,
Yes, Alex, my friend.
I have a feeling we're about to embark on a most excellent episode because we are covering Keanu Reeves and his new film, A Good Fortune. This is Alex from Los Angeles.
And this is Karan from Los Angeles. Welcome to Movies That Shaped Us. We're two longtime friends who grew up on opposite ends of the globe with very different backgrounds, but were both shaped and are still being shaped by the movies we see and love. In each episode, we cover a filmmaker who shaped our love of movies. So join us as we explore why they matter and review the three movies in their filmography that made the biggest impact on us. So it's your boy, Keanu.
It's Keanu. Yeah, we're covering Keanu now, which is going to be exciting, and I'm definitely looking forward to talking about the new film, which I actually got to see at the West Coast premiere, which was fun, a couple weeks back
Oh.
actually. But yeah, before getting into that film and then our Keanu's, yeah, why don't you start on what your Keanu when your love affair with Keanu Reeves started and what you think about him as a yeah, he's a movie star. I think for sure he's a definitely a movie star for several decades now.
Yeah, he's definitely a movie star. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I think we've done a lot of big movie stars back to back, and Keanu is in that zone, but also not, I
Hmm.
think. I think he, in terms of like fame and knowability, he might be equal. I mean, and a part of it also comes to, what age you are in, but,
Hmm.
we are 90s, coming of age in the 90s, so it didn't matter where you lived. Movies like Matrix and The Speed and such, they're going to come to you.
Right.
And I think I talked about this when we covered The Matrix in one of our earlier episodes, that I just remember that movie playing in every room in my dorm. Like you walked through corridors and you saw that movie playing on repeat on computer screens, of course, and people having philosophical conversations or trying to do stunts like that or just emulating what he wore. So
Yeah.
it was a big culturally defining moment with that movie, really everywhere. I'm sure, obviously in the US as well, but
Hmm.
yeah, in India too. So that's my, and we'll get into intros and such of
Hmm.
what movies made the biggest impact of his. But I think for me, growing up, like he was the definition of sort of cool,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
cool in a kind of a nonchalant kind of way. There are other
Hmm.
people who are cool who are maybe more macho or more aggressive or really kind of lay it heavy, but there's something very kind of easy breezy light about Keanu. And then an action star, he always was. And of course, in his later career, like that's kind of sort of been personified even more. But I mean, there are not that many people who you can put in that hall of fame, I think, of, action movie stars. But yet again, not people who are yelling, running around being angry or mad. That's what you associate with, action stars, even though he has the physique and all of that you expect from an action star, but he's light, and but as an actor, I've always had issues with him because and I will give him credit for trying a lot. Like I think he tried a lot of different things, accents, period pieces, dramas, and what have you. And a lot of it just does not work. And I think there's a time when I post Matrix and such where I was like, this just, and maybe he's doing a bit, just didn't feel very smart to me and sort of had this kind of lost kind of look to him at all points. And it didn't matter what movie he was in, which worked really well for these action sci-fi movies because you're kind of this blank canvas and you can be the
Hmm.
vessel for, whatever story the filmmakers are telling. But for other cases where you really had to be, a full-blown character, or like a very character-led piece, if you will, I just never, those never landed on me. But I think as I've gotten older and he's gotten older and he's kind of become like a meme of himself, and the fact that he's managed to kind of have this amazing later career and also build a persona which just feels very cool and grounded, where most celebrities carry, a big weight. He just seems like a good guy. He
Oh
seems
yeah.
more grounded. I mean, who knows what these people really are, but that's what he feels like. At least that's his brand.
Hmm.
So I've sort of had like a bit of a resurgence, in my appreciation for him as an actor, as a movie star, action person, cool guy. I've always loved him.
Hmm.
Not so much as an actor, but, and we'll get into this movie, which I think is maybe some of the best work he's done as an
Hmm.
actor in a long
Hmm.
time,
Hmm.
because the movie is tailor-made for him. Spoiler alert. Uh,
Literally, actually, but
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, I kind of like second a lot of things that you say in the sense of what makes Keanu like unique in my view is that he is cool, but in not in a way that, yeah, it's sort of like a James Dean where you're kind of seem like you're kind of trying hard or like fitting this persona of what cool would be in like a dictionary. He's like defining it for himself and can do cool, quote unquote, in all these different roles, like the cool high school kid in Bill and Ted, or the cool coder in The Matrix, or the cool action star with John Wick. And it's just like these different flavors of this coolness that he has that is just so like nonchalant, but not in like a arrogant way, like, oh, I'm so cool, I'm gonna walk around and like I'm the coolest guy at the party. It's like that person at the party who you sort of like see off in the corner and like people are kind of talking to him and he's sort of non-assuming, and then you go up and you sort of like engage with this guy and you're like, oh, this person is like low key, like super cool. But it wouldn't be really obvious by like if you took a photo of the party, it's like, oh, that's the coolest guy here. You look over in the corner. And
Right.
that I think what makes Keanu like super unique. And then we'll get into my kind of first impression of him through Bill and Ted. And like that is he's one of the guys too, for me at least, who like he will always be that specific role. And anytime I see him in a movie, it's just like, okay, he's basically playing Ted as Neo, playing Ted as, John Wick. And it's like there's something about
And
that
that could be a good thing or a bad thing.
absolutely. No, absolutely. For sure. And it too, like, because I grew up in the, late 80s, early 90s. That was my Keanu. And I think people who are maybe a little bit younger than us, it would be The Matrix is like the defining thing. And then for people even younger, I think it's John Wick is probably his most
Yeah.
famous. If you ask some, man on the street, okay, what is Keanu Reeves? What was he known for of a certain age? If you ask someone who's like, I don't know, 18, 15, they'd be like, oh yeah, the guy from John Wick. And actually, funnily enough, I was this might be surprising to the people watching us, but the people that are not watching us, believe me, this is not surprising at all. But I was in a cafe a couple years ago in Amsterdam, and this waitress who was like 15 probably or whatever is like, "Oh, you look like somebody," and I'm like, "Okay, like what? Like your friend or something? Like what is no like a famous actor?" I'm like, "Okay." Like sometimes people say Adrian Brody, I don't think that, but whatever. And I was like, "Okay, what kind of role?"
I
She's like,
can
"Oh,
see
it's just
that.
like." It's like this Netflix cartoon show, but space. And I'm like, a cartoon? She's like, yeah, this cartoon character, but it's a real actor. And then she like goes on her phone and there's some cartoon show on Netflix, some sci-fi show where Keanu Reeves plays himself. And I was like, oh, you mean Keanu Reeves? She's like, oh yeah, that's who he is. So like, oh, like John Wick. And she's like, I think I know what that is. And then I was like, well, what about The Matrix? You heard of that? She's like, I have no idea what that is. So then I'm like, I'm definitely
Wow.
not going to mention Bill and Ted to age me. But like, I think Keanu is unique because he is known to like these iconic roles, but depending on what age you were, you associate that role with him. Unlike, everyone thinks of Harrison Ford as like Han Solo or Indiana Jones. No matter what
Right.
age you are, like those roles define him and he will, carry with them forever. But Keanu, uniquely enough, has been able to kind of like change what those iconic roles are through the generations and still stay relevant. And now this like random Amsterdam woman is like the altered whatever the hell that show was called, like that cartoon guy is what she knows him from. But hey, like that's cool for him.
First of all, very cool for you that people think that you are Keanu. And I can see
Again, if you're
with the
listening to
long
this, of course,
hair
why
and
why
yeah.
would they not? I look exactly like Keanu Reeves. Obviously, obviously, the people watching on YouTube are probably like rolling their eyes and thumbs downing this video, but the, anyway, but yeah, no, I thought that was really funny.
That's amazing. But yeah, it's not many people had that kind of career. Even though I would argue it's probably the same performance
It
across
is. No, it is
all
for
of
sure
these
the same. Yeah,
movies. But yeah,
exactly. Right. But he's able to find that right role. I think you were kind of hitting the nail on the head that too. And I think we do have to call out, and we'll talk about this in some of the movies we're even covering today. Yeah, he is criticized a lot for his wooden acting. I'll say that
yeah.
to call it to be nice about it. And I think yes, he is a wooden actor, and there are certain roles where that works really well, like you said, and other times it really doesn't. And it's obvious that he can do something really well, but he's not like a jack of all trades. He's not a chameleon who gets lost in the role and you're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that's Keanu Reeves."
Right.
How could someone like, transform himself like that? Like, no, to me, he's always going to be Ted doing different things, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I forgive him for that. I get why some people are like, oh, he's the. I remember in the 90s too, pre-Matrix at least, he was sort of in a big lull in his career. Like after Speed,
Hmm.
he wasn't really able to kind of recapture some of that action stuff. And a lot of people were making fun of him. He'd be like a joke. Oh, Keanu Reeves, like what a horrible actor that guy was. And like, oh, he's just, yeah, he got lucky with Speed or whatever. And obviously the Matrix kind of changed all that. And now I think people don't really do that as much anymore, like
Yeah.
criticizing, which is good. I think, look, yeah, you're not going to be perfect at every role. You find the roles, and all of a sudden, yeah, you're an iconic John Wick. But yeah, you can't pull off John Harker from Dracula. Spoiler to what we're talking about later in this episode. But yeah, sometimes he's not good. But I don't fault him for that. I don't call him a bad actor. I call him someone who just needs the right role, for what his talents bring. That's what I'll
Yeah.
say at least.
Yeah. I mean, as an actor, you should be able to sort of transform or play. And I'm not even talking about physical transformation, but it's like internal transformation is what I
Right.
really care about. He's basically channeling this one energy that he has. So, yeah, to me, he's an action star and a performer. That's some people might get mad at that term, but yeah, I put that sort of slightly derogatory term on people who are like, they're performers, but it's not to take away from the skill of doing that. I mean, I'm not sort of saying that that's easy to do. It's very
Hmm.
hard to do that and make it look believable and also do it in a way that, you know, droves of fans over generations will follow you. Like it's not easy to do that. So, kudos to him for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he's someone else too, at least that I see no matter what the role is, even if he's miscast or not, there is a dedication where he's not a lazy star performer. Like he is trying. We covered Nicolas Cage, I think about a year ago or something, who again, it makes terrible movies sometimes, wild performances sometimes, but he's never lazy. And I think Keanu is a lot in the same way too. And I will like incredibly respect him for what he did with The Matrix in the sense of
Hmm.
like this is pre, all the actors doing their own stunts thing. Yes, there was Jackie Chan who was making it in America in the 90s, and it was like a novelty of like, oh my God, actors are doing their own stunts. And obviously then Tom Cruise sort of made a phase of his career after that. But at this time, like the training that Keanu did in The Matrix to prepare for that role, and the fact that when you watch the movie, and we'll talk about it in more detail, like it's him.
Hmm.
That was new at the time. That was showing that
Yeah.
he really wanted to be like, I'm gonna actually be. You can tell that it's me because it is gonna be me, and I
Yeah.
think that's really cool. And I'll always
Yeah.
respect him for doing that. I remember being so shocked when I saw the movie too. At the first, like, how is Ted able to do all like this is him? This isn't like a stunt double. Like, what is going on? And then he's actually kept up with it, and then that's why he's able to in the John Wick series do a lot of incredible stunts and things there. I think he's trained now as doing able to do these amazing, obviously yes he has stunt doubles, but so it's not
Right.
just all him. But I kudos to him, like he's not lazy, even though he very
Yeah.
easily could be called that. Like you're not trying. It's like no, he is trying. Sometimes he just can't act, and
Get there.
he can't, but his heart is there,
Yeah.
which I always appreciate about him. He's great. Like he seems like just the coolest dude, like you said too. Just matches his persona, I think, of like a super chill, you know again, California surfer attitude, even though he's not American and he did not, grow up in LA.
Hmm.
He's a Canadian guy who kind of grew up all different parts of North America. But he always feels to me like that sort of Long Beach surfer guy in a
Right.
cool Zen kind of way,
Yeah.
not obnoxious sort of Baywatch surfer, but just oh hey dude, what's up? Like
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
mellow out, man. Like that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's the
Very
best.
chill.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
so cool. I love Keanu.
I do too, actually. Yeah. There are not many people like that. He's sort of singular,
Yeah,
and
he's like lovable, I think. He's a
yeah,
lovable
there's
sort of
something very kind of person next door quality to him, despite being so cool, which is very hard to capture. But
exactly.
speaking of, should we talk about the new movie that he is in?
Yeah, let's get into his latest film, and this is Good Fortune from 2005 or 2025 this year. The plot of this movie is a well-meaning but rather inept angel named Gabriel meddles in the lives of a struggling gig worker and a wealthy venture capitalist. So this movie is directed and written by the comedian Aziz Ansari. This is his first feature film that he's written in. The starring obviously Keanu Reeves as well as Aziz Ansari and Seth Rogen. Yeah, before getting into the film, I'll talk a little bit about Keanu in this. And I think much like we were in our intro of saying, he has this persona and the role has to kind of fit it or not. In my view, this angel that he plays, Gabriel, who is a not the best. Like he's like a lower rung angel who's sort of like struggling at what he's doing. He's got these little tiny wings. He's not looked upon as like the guy who's a cool angel who's like slaying it and doing all this, saving all these really cool people. Like this one angel's like, oh, everyone's looking up to this one guy, Azrael. I forget his name.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he's like sort of a lower rung guy. And he's trying to, move up the ranks of the angel and angel thing and sort of sees a situation where he feels like he can help out Aziz Ansari's character. And he has a heart to him. And he's like the simple guy with a heart, but he is Keanu, so he's cool. He's got the beard and the long hair and like his little trench coat. And I think this perfectly fits like his persona of what he does well. His sort of wooden acting style works because he's playing an angel, this magical, creature who is not, at least initially, human. So he hasn't really doesn't know human emotion and things until he becomes human later on in the film. And then you start to see him struggling with what everyday life is like, and trying to make ends meet and things like that. And you really see him then being able to look like someone who doesn't know how to react to eating for the first time, for example. I love that scene when he's in the restaurant and he's like, how do you do this? And like, how do you chew? And he's like, oh my God, this burger is amazing. And like getting really excited about all the milkshake and all these the joys of, experiencing stuff for the first time. I think that is like tailor made for Keanu. Because, at the end of the day, too, this character has like a heart and a sincerity to him, which honestly is something else. Maybe I should have mentioned this in the outset. I think is Keanu too. Like all his
Mm-hmm.
roles, when done well, there is sort of a sincerity and a wearing his heart on his sleeve, no matter whether he's Neo or John Wick or Ted, and even in this film, Gabriel. Like he does that very well. So I think this is just a great performance by him and just a perfect type or match of a persona and an acting style to a role. That was my thought on. Again, we'll talk about the film in a sec, but yeah, how did you think of Keanu and Good Fortune?
Yeah, very similar. Like when the movie started, he was sort of doing his thing, especially I think as he's gotten older, I've seen that in talk show appearances too. Like he sort of articulates even more,
Right.
the way he talks is like I don't this has happened as, people get older, they develop tics and such, so he
Uh-huh.
has this and he was doing that too. So I was like, oh no, this is I don't know how I feel about this, and I understand what they were going for, and it's sort of, typecast kind of thing and what have you. But then as the movie went on, and especially once he became a human, the scenes that you were talking about of him discovering the joys of being a
Hmm.
human, but also developing these relationships with these guys that he's hanging out with. And I don't want to spoil it, but that particular scene of him on the bench with his Ansari at the very end of the movie
Mm.
was very moving, for him to realize that, oh, I'm going to go back and become an angel and maybe even get a higher rank, but the sacrifice there is I'm going to lose my friend, because I love you guys and I've developed relationships, and I think that's where I was like, yeah, this is a pretty magical performance because they're using his sincerity and kind of good nature that's so transparent, really come through. And it's fun to see him smile. Like the action movies that he's been making over the last several years, there's no joy or humor in those, right? They're very
Right.
intense, dark
Hmm.
movies, and you see Keanu like dance and enjoy tacos and vibe and laugh and smile, and that's was so nice to see that actually. So yeah, it felt like I'm never a fan of, when movies are like winking at themselves or like a meta performance. I know you mentioned Nicolas Cage, who's very
Hmm.
famous for meta performances. I'm just not into that sort of
Hmm.
stuff. And when the movie started, that's where my head was going. But then something happened where it is a transformation, but it's actually maybe him being the most transparent as opposed to transformed of what we think he is. So maybe it still is meta, but there's something that felt very true and real about that. So I really enjoyed his performance actually. I wish
Yeah.
there was more of him, and we'll talk about the movie. I think the movie is maybe juggling too many things that I would have loved to see more of the angels kind of situation as well.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe we can transition then into
Yeah.
the film a bit. So yeah, I actually was surprisingly really enjoyed the film.
Yeah.
I was probably actually wouldn't have seen the movie if not for the podcast. I mean, I
Same.
don't dislike Aziz Ansari, but I'm not like a huge fan where like, oh, he's doing a movie, like I gotta rush out
Right.
and see this. And the trailers made it look okay, and I do really love, and because we did the Ben Affleck episode, I think we covered Dogma. And I think I mentioned in that episode that I really love like fantasy movies involving angels and things. Like I love Michael, I love It's a Wonderful Life, obviously Dogma. So anything when there's like angels in a hierarchy where the bureaucracy of like how angels work, I don't know. I'm like I am there. That's my favorite kind of fantasy movie. Put Lord of the Rings down. I want angels. So when that was part of this, I was like, okay, I'm probably gonna like it because of that. You know, like it's an easy win for me. But yeah, the movie like just ended up being a lot more socially conscious and was about something was not anticipating, which is basically like the plight of the modern day sort of working man, and that the way to live a fulfilling life is through friendship and finding a cause that is greater than oneself is sort of the message I took away. But
Hmm.
I was just again not expecting this to be so much of a like It's a Wonderful Life movie where it's a fantasy with a very strong message that I think is very well balanced too in the sense of Seth Rogen, I think, who's this VC character, like the rich guy. Basically, the plot is it's like trading places. A rich person and a poor person's trade places by this angel, and it's supposed to teach the poor person the lesson that being rich sucks, and he realized being rich is actually awesome. You don't have to do anything. Everyone likes you automatically. You don't have to do any work because rich people don't work, and you get to buy whatever you want. And but then later he realizes there's more to life than that, and I think Seth Rogen's character very easily could be fully vilified as well, which he's not. And I think he learns an interesting lesson too at the end of the movie too. So,
Hmm.
yeah, we can talk more about the ending and things like that in a bit. But yeah, I was actually like really surprised at how it was like charming too. It was
Hmm.
funny enough. It was lightheartedly funny. It wasn't like a laugh out loud, like I was crying so hard, like crying, I was laughing so hard kind of situation. But it was very pleasantly, yeah, pleasantly fun. What about you? What were your initial impressions of Good Fortune?
Yeah, I like you said, I probably wouldn't have watched it. I probably would have waited to watch it on TV, but I'm very glad we went and saw it on the big screen because number one, just watching a comedy in the big on the big screen is just so much joy, and it was a packed theater, and everybody's having a good time and laughing, and some people were definitely on something else because they were laughing a lot. I was like, okay. Even on the emotional things, they were still laughing. I was like, I
Uh,
think we moved past the laugh line. So,
yeah, yeah.
but it was a good time. But you're right. Like I didn't watch a bunch of trailers or read a bunch about the movie. I just sort of went in cold. I knew about the angel part, but that's sort
Mhm.
of it. And I was pleasantly surprised by how deep the movie was actually. And again, we've had a lot of these sort of movies of Eat the Rich or The Plight of the People or Take Things in Your Own Hand, and they all sort of feel very heavy-handed and A24 coded. I'm just bored of all of that. This sort of felt like a very sincere, kind of positive, hopeful way, but also calling out the issues that we have in society without, like you said, vilifying anybody because yeah, we have to kind of figure this out, and there are certain things there are rich people, there are poor people and what have you, but I think it has a pretty sympathetic look at really everybody, at least the main
Yeah,
characters,
the
that they
two main,
all,
yeah,
yeah, the two
right.
main people, that they
Especially the two
all
main
have
leads.
their plights, and
Hmm.
and they could have easily made Seth Rogen's character like a bad guy, but no, he gives him a job. He's sort of clueless, but he's not like, he's like, yeah, join the Barada Boys Club and all of that, at the beginning. So he didn't have to do any of that.
Hmm.
And also, Aziz Ansari's character is not sort of, glorified. He's sort of a bum,
Yeah,
He's like,
absolutely.
yeah, and he treats people not the best way. He's lying away, but you empathize with him, but you also are like, yeah, you could push further and do more, even if things are not in your favor or what have you. So, but then on top of it, the movie's very funny, I thought. I kind of like the whole angel part of it. And what, on top of not that all of this, as if all this was not surprising enough, what really surprised me even on top of it was Kiki Palmer. I think I've only
Mm,
seen her in Nope, and she was amazing in that. And she's so great. I just
yeah.
felt like she's sort of like the, as they say in, review log lines, the heart and soul of the movie. But that's what she
Yes.
felt like to me,
Yes.
like this is somebody who's sort of real. She just felt so effortless because, both Seth and Keanu and Aziz, they all are very antic in their own way, right? Like Seth is always playing Seth, Aziz is always playing Aziz, Keanu is
Yeah,
always
yeah,
playing
yeah.
Keanu, right?
Right.
This felt like a real human being in the movie, with, and not even what she represents, even remove that, but just like as an actor, as a human being, it was amazing to watch her. And she kind of grounded the movie. I think it was very critical to have her, even though she has no chemistry with Aziz Ansari, of course. I mean, I
Yeah,
didn't really
I
quite buy that, but I didn't care, I
yeah,
was
yeah,
just
yeah.
happy to see her. And the last thing I say is that it was fun to see a movie shot in LA, entirely. Like we live in this city. It was so fun to kind of clock, oh, what neighborhood might this be and what have you. That was really fun. The only sort of gripe I have with the movie is that it sometimes felt repetitive and kind of dragged a little bit. In a movie like this, I think the pacing is really important. It's
Hmm.
not like I was checked out or bored, but it felt repetitive because we were going over the plots of like, oh, the switches happen and I can't go back. I said, yeah, we got it, like sort of move. And then I guess the whole Keanu piece, because that's a whole movie in itself, right? Like this
Is
angel
learning
who's
about
not
humans
great
and
at his
right, yeah.
job and is kind of a dum dum,
Hmm.
but takes more than he can chew, and then there are consequences. And I mean, he's the one who sets a lot of this in motion. But Aziz is the lead of the movie. Like everything is from his point of view, which I understand. So it felt a bit stuffed in that sense. I wish they would have maybe cut the repetition of the plot and maybe given more to Keanu to do actually in the movie. But even so, I had a wonderful time, and I think more movies like this should exist.
Yeah.
And I walked out feeling, what movies do best. Like they entertain you, but they also make you think about something, but also give you like a hopeful bump. Like it was like a great. I watched it last night, so I'm fresh off it. It was like a
Oh, wow.
great Friday night
Nice.
movie. So I recommend it.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And I think getting back to your comments on Kiki Palmer, I think she does a fantastic job, and that character too is so critical to the movie because that is what she's the one who teaches Aziz Ansari the
Right.
lesson in the film, which is that first of all, it's not like there's your plight is not you're just because you're not rich doesn't mean that you can't have a fulfilling life, but that life isn't because you're grinding to try to like get the money. It's because of the finding love through friends and family and supporting other people and having a cause beyond yourself. She's pushing for a union at this Home Depot she works with, and yeah, it fails the first attempt, but she doesn't give up. And she's like,
Right.
no, it's fine. Like sometimes you fail, but you have to have something that you're trying to not only help yourself, because the union isn't just helping you, it's helping obviously all of your fellow workers as well. That cause that is sort of bigger than yourself is I think what motivates Aziz to be like, yeah, I can go back to my life, which is going like from paycheck to paycheck or sometimes not even a paycheck, sleeping in your car and all these things. It's hard, as a gig worker out there. But that, I can find another cause that I can fulfill my life
Yeah,
with, that it doesn't
motivate
have to be.
myself about for.
Exactly
Yeah.
right, because sometimes there's movies or whatever that try to cast the poverty as, oh, there's a nobility in poverty, and look at the oh, this amazing it gives you good character to be poor, which is kind of bullshit. No, it doesn't. It's like you're poor. Like that's not you. That shouldn't be how you get good character. You get good character or grow and things like that through other things. It doesn't. It's not like, oh, everyone has to be poor to like learn a lesson. Like that's ridiculous.
Hmm.
And I like that this movie also isn't doing that to Seth Rogen's character either. I think what he is realizing when he becomes poor, that in the film and switches places with Aziz, he's realizing that he is the cause. Him and his class are the cause of a lot of these problems for no reason. Like at the end of the movie, he has a speech like, we could just pay these people more. Like we're
Right.
all still like multi-billionaires. It's not like all of a sudden we're gonna be out on the street if we just like give them $4 extra like on these delivery. So it's like his realization that he's part of the problem and part of the solution. And at the end of the
Right.
day, it's not like he's saying, "Oh, I'm a bad person. That's why I'm doing this to purposely like screw these people over." He just didn't know, and he's not thinking about. He's not thinking about what the implications of his
Exactly.
actions are. You know?
Exactly. And what's unifying between the two of them is that they're both sort of like they don't have purpose.
Correct. Right.
And I think that's a very common thing. It doesn't matter how rich you are. Of course, if you're rich, your life is easier for
Sure.
sure.
You don't have to do anything. Yeah.
That said, it's still very hollow. Like he's
Hmm.
lonely. He has no real friends. He has no real love. He has all these articles. He has no idea of what these articles represent,
Right,
like the
right.
car and what have you that they show. So they do a good job of kind of unifying and connecting them, and just kind of seeing each other as humans, which I thought was, pretty powerful. And then what you're saying, like if Kiki represents kind of purpose, I think Keanu represents the joy of just being
Yes.
human,
The
like
little
these
things.
simple pleasures, yeah, of like eating tacos, hanging out with friends, dancing, and what have you. And he helps Keanu and Seth both like get in touch with maybe their childhood days, and even makes Aziz call his dad and sort of own
Hmm.
up and be truthful of what has been going on. So yeah, for a movie like this, I was not expecting all this depth.
Yeah.
And on top of it, it is very funny, which I knew it would be because I do think Aziz Ansari is very funny.
Me too. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, exactly. And I think the Keanu part you're touching on too is like it's the simple things, that are that you can drive a lot of pleasures from and piggybacking that in your comment about Los Angeles and things. I think this movie also does a good job of showing the smaller, simpler parts of LA, like the taco trucks. They're everywhere. They're great. It's amazing food. You don't have to go out to some expensive five-star restaurant and get these $50 street tacos. Like, no, you can go and have a taco and it's like the best taco you've ever had. Or like the little dance club they go to. It's not some big club on Sunset where it's like a $50 cover charge and there's all these people kind of dancing around. No, it's this cool little hangout where there's just some fun music. And I love that about LA. There's all those little
yeah.
places like that where you don't have to spend a ton of money and still you can get as much joy out of eating a street taco as you do going to some super expensive restaurant. And I love how they kind of like captured that side of LA and showed you that yeah, that's awesome too. Like that's a great part of any city, but I'm
Of any
biased because I
city,
live
but
here, but
especially this city, yeah.
yeah.
But they have like great subtle things of like, the people who do have a little bit more money, they have to have, the thing and be in line for like 2 hours
Oh,
and
right.
what have you. And so they're playing with a lot of dimensions of like class and what people think they want and
Hmm.
what people think they want to aspire to get to, and often forgetting what actually matters, and but it also shows all sides of LA, right? Like you're saying, the small things, the homeless embankments are shown often in the movie,
Yeah.
purposefully, I think, but also the Bel Air mansion. So, all these different sides, which I think they just add texture to the movie, I think, makes it
Right.
real.
Exactly. It makes it real, but isn't trying to, at least I didn't feel this way, like pushing the message sort of like down your
Right.
throat. It's like showing, oh, yeah, there's all these homeless embankments. And like, Aziz Ansari's character is homeless, even though he
Yeah.
has like four different jobs and is trying to make a living, which most homeless people have at least one job, if not more than one job. It's hard to live. It's not that they can't get employed. And I like that the movie just setting that as the stage and not making it the main focus, even though yes, the movie does have this strong message, like we said, about the upper class and the lower classes, but it's like there's a heart to it and there's a charm to it where it doesn't feel like it's shoving it down your throat. Kind of again, like
No.
Trading Places is similar in that respect too. It's a
Yeah.
very, very funny movie about sort of serious like socioeconomic things. But no,
Yeah.
I definitely would recommend this movie for sure. I also thought it was interesting. I'm curious if this happened at your screening too. You said you saw it at a packed audience. I saw it like 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, like the LA premiere, so it was sold out, and it was so definitely like it's a very LA crowd with probably a lot of people who maybe like worked on the film or like in the industry or whatever. And the line at the end of the movie when Seth Rogen gives his little speech to like the board when he comes back and he has this like now he's like, oh, we need to like do more and help these people out. And he's like, you know what? Fuck AI. Like when he said that, the entire theater erupted in applause, and everyone was like,
Same. There were
yeah,
claps in my theater
yeah,
as well.
down with AI. And I thought that was funny. I was like, oh, nice. And I'm glad that sort of people are, yeah, waking up to the fact that this is killing us and it's a disaster and doesn't even work. But I thought that was,
Yeah.
so I'm interested that you have felt the same also at a packed, and actually the second week this movie's out too.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to hear that it was a packed house, and Aziz actually came out and had talked a little before the movie, and one of the things he did say was like, I'm glad you guys are in the theater. We pushed really hard to make sure this is out in a movie, and it's important to have comedies together,
Yeah.
because laughing with a group is very
It
different
was
than being home alone.
amazing.
And
Yeah.
so I'm glad like it's playing to packed houses, at least here in Los Angeles, still like second weekend that it's out, and because it made it more enjoyable for me to be, yeah, like I might
Definitely.
have said, yeah, fuck AI at the end, but me alone on my couch doing that, is very different than like an entire movie theater just being like ready to go out there and smash the machines at that line, which is really was really funny.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Okay, so with that, do you want to talk about your first love
Yeah, so
of
now we're
Keanu
gonna get
Reeves?
into we're gonna get into our section of the episode where we talk about our top threes for Keanu. So we're gonna start with our first love. This is the movie that first left a lasting impression on us about Keanu and made us fall in love with him as an actor or performer. Then we're gonna talk about our masterpiece, the quintessential Keanu performance for each one of us, and then finally the wild card. This could be a wild swing that Keanu took that didn't work out, or maybe it did. It was something unique that he did, or maybe it's a movie that's overlooked a lot in his filmography that we really enjoy and kind of want to bring to the table. So yeah, I don't mind at all starting with my first love. I've referenced it several times in the episode already, but this is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure from 1989. So this movie is directed by Stephen Herrick, starring Keanu Reeves, Alex Winter, and George Carlin. And the IMDb plot summary: two rock and rollin' teens on the verge of failing their class set out on a quest to make the ultimate school history report after being presented with a time machine. So I will talk about the movie in a little bit, but like it's pretty easy for me to immediately know this is my first love of Keanu Reeves. This is a movie that I saw like dozens, if not, more than that times as a young kid, always renting this movie. One of my favorite movies growing up. And Keanu is just so like iconic as this uh Ted, right? Who is this California sort of like valley guy. Actually, and I didn't really realize this till a lot later, but these characters are definitely really stoner coded. Like it's kind of a
Yeah.
stoner comedy with no drugs in it whatsoever. But as like, an 8-year old, I didn't think that, oh, these are like guys that are smoking pot all the time, even though that's kind of what the movie is basically implying. But yeah, it's sort of a valley surfer, airhead, but harmless California guy. And yeah, I think this movie to me always, the character of Ted always represents Keanu in the sense of this guy is, he's a dope, but he's got a heart of gold. He's super sincere. He's not trying to like con anyone or do any kind of like dirty tricks. He's like a really nice guy. Has a great friendship with Bill. I love their camaraderie together. And yeah, just sort of dealing with high school hijinks, but then to this point where they have a time machine and they're going back and trying to capture Napoleon and Beethoven and all these guys kind of go through time, which is for just to try to simply just get an A on their report so he doesn't go to military school. Like it's a classic sort of 80s
Yeah.
plot in that respect. So I think this too, from a performance standpoint, like he just nails this. Like from not only the way these lines of dialogue are delivered, even though they sound like idiots, but they sort of speak like in the Shakespeare-like cadence in terms of how they deliver this dialogue. Even the physicality of it, he has these great sort of like bops his head around, his hair's kind of flopping. He does sort of great stuff with his arms and sort of body language. So it's not just him kind of being this relaxed, like, hey, dude, what's up? Like not really moving. Like he is like really committing to the physicality of this role, which I think then sets a stage for later on down the line. He's in action movies like Speed and Point Break, and then obviously The Matrix and John Wick. You can kind of see that he's a physical actor at this point.
Mm.
But yeah, like he's always going to be Ted for me forever. And actually, on this watch, because I've seen this movie again like easily over 100 times, I noticed that like there's a scene at the end where they're doing the presentation. He's getting like psychoanalyzed by Freud. And he says something like, "Oh, I don't
Oh yeah.
forget the line." But he kind of stands up. He says his like classic Matrix "whoa" line for the first
Oh
time. He's like,
yeah.
"Whoa," and I'm like, "Oh, that was like the
Oh
beginning." Like
yeah.
10 years later, you're gonna be your signature lines. So that was kind of fun to see. But yeah, like this is gonna always be Keanu Reeves. I guess I'm of that age. This is the defining Keanu performance
Right.
for what made me love this guy. But yeah, what about you and this film, and then Keanu specifically, and then we'll talk more about the film in a bit. Yeah, what was your
Yeah.
impression of Keanu?
I mean, I've known about this movie, of course, and the series, but I don't think this movie made it in a big way in India. So
Hmm.
I probably saw scenes of the movie, but I actually don't remember watching it end to end until for the
Oh, cool. Oh,
podcast.
I'm very
So
curious to hear your thoughts on the film in a sec. But yeah,
yeah,
what about the Keanu piece
I
first?
mean, yeah, I mean, I can see if you met him at the age that we were when this movie came out, like that would be such a incredible experience, right? Like he gets etched in your mind as a school guy who's heart of gold, like you said. But going back now and watching it, like the dopiness of it it's a bit too much for me.
Yeah.
It's still adorable, of course, but
Yeah.
like after a while that gets a little much. So But I understand, like, if this is what you're coming to, and especially not just him, but the whole movie is like so kind of, it hits you right at that age because you're in the same shoes, right? You're trying to get your school assignments and stuff done, and you don't want to do it, and people are upset about that, and this and that, and how fun could it be if you could just go on this great adventure? So it's like
Excellent adventure, you
perfect.
mean? Not great
Excellent,
adventure. Excellent.
exactly.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a very time capsule movie as well, and so is he. Like
Yeah.
he's literally from a time capsule. That said, it's still fun to watch him, He's like you forget how young he was when he started, So that's kind of cool to see. And he's very cute, from early age. Like he looks great, even though he's sort of a dope, totally, which is
There's a
uh
charm in that too,
there's
like
charm in that,
a
and
little
their
airhead
friendship
kid.
is very sweet. That's fun to watch. So that was great. And then the movies, it's a very time capsule movie, but entertaining nonetheless. And all I kept thinking was that I wonder if they showed slash still show this movie in schools because it is a bit of a, learn history in a fun
Yeah.
way. Did they do that?
I don't remember it being in. I don't remember if they showed this in school, but they definitely. I mean, it's a fun way to like look at history, and learn
Yeah, or
the
at least learn about who these people are. Like, otherwise you
right.
don't want to learn about Mozart or what have you, or Freud, and now you know who they are.
Yeah, and I think it captures them pretty well. Like I love
Yeah.
to, in terms of like learning who they are. I love the joke in here where it's like, oh, so Joan of Arc wasn't Noah's wife. Like I love that. Like who is Joan of Arc? Noah's wife. Like that stuff is so funny. But no, like I think it does a good job of accurately, capturing what the essence of each of these historical figures. But yeah, like again, for me, like I watched this movie a lot. I was a big, always been a big fan of history and time travel because I think I mentioned this
Right.
in an earlier episode. Like I watched Doctor Who a lot as a young kid, so like those two things together in a movie that is just stupid, like it's like a smart dumb comedy where it's very smartly written about dumb people doing sort of silly things, and that also is a type of humor that I've always, with like Python as I would put in that category, or
Right.
like South Park, where
As
it's
you
like,
know,
yeah, this
this
is
is not
stupid,
my thing, but
but it's really
yes.
smart. Yeah, that is like
Yeah.
100% sort of
That's your
my
thing. Yeah.
type of comedy. And yeah, I just think this movie has a lot of like good stuff going on in it. At the end of the day, like the message of the movie of that, Abraham Lincoln famously says, during the presentation at the end, like be excellent to one another and party on
Yeah.
is really how everyone should live their lives, really. Just be
Yeah.
nice to people and just have a good time because, that's as this movie sort of, there's a lot about time and, their legacy, right, of saving the future through their music or whatever. It's like, no, that's really the best way to live your life is like Bill and Ted. Just be nice to people and just party on. And I like that as a message. I think this movie is good in that respect too. It's not just a silly movie for kids, even though the premise it looks like that. But I think the message is very strong, and that's something I would associate with Keanu as well. Like he's just a guy who is just be excellent, and nice to one another, and yeah, party on, dudes. You know what I'm saying?
Such a great message. And you're right, like he kind of embodies that, And again, who knows who these people really are, but it feels like that he embodies that. And it's such a simple message, but clearly not easy to follow. So
No, it's it's
yeah,
it's hard. Sometimes you forget to party, and that's not good. But you got to remember to keep
exactly.
partying.
Just go find some chicken nuggies.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the simple things. So that was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, my first love of Keanu Reeves. And what was your first love of Keanu Reeves?
Can I say one thing about Bill and Ted, which
Oh,
is that
sure.
I loved all the historic characters kind of wrestling with the modern day life and the jobs that they were put in and what they would be good at, and Joan of Arc like just really getting into aerobics. I just laugh so much. Like they kind of steal the movie a little bit
Oh,
because
yeah.
they have more to do and they're interesting, and it's pretty clever, like you were saying. So I really enjoyed that. And yeah, yeah, it was really fun.
No, that is my favorite sequence too at the mall, and it's like
Yeah,
Billy the
so
Kid
good.
and like Socrates or Socrates trying to pick up
Right.
women, and then Sigmund Freud comes in the room, and like all that fun dynamic is
It's so
always
good. And
and it
very
feels
80s, right? The malls were important,
oh yeah.
especially in this country. So in the
Exactly. It was
80s. Yeah.
definitely a good time capsule, but no, it's a movie is laugh out loud. I think that's something that, whereas like the Good Fortune, which I enjoyed, I wasn't like out loud like laughing. But every time I watch Bill and Ted, I mean, there are parts of this movie that, I just every time just makes me laugh, especially that mall sequence. So
That's so great.
yeah. So
Okay,
now on
so
to
my first
your
love.
first love. Yeah.
So my first love is a little known movie called Speed from 1994, starring Keanu, of course, Dennis Hopper, Sandra Bullock, directed by Jan de Bont. Is it
Yes.
John or Jan? Probably
Jan.
Jan.
Jan Demont. Yeah.
Jan de Bont. Quick logline: an extortionist bomber rigs a Los Angeles city bus to explode if its speed drops below 50 miles per hour, forcing a young cop and a female passenger to keep it moving and save everyone on board.
That's the pitch.
That's the pitch,
Yeah.
including the 50 miles per hour. I was not expecting that detail, but good
Yep. That's the
job.
pitch. Yeah.
Uh, no, I mean, the age that we grew up in, you could not escape this movie. And I just remember watching it and just being so thrilled by it. And we'll talk about the movie in a bit. But I
Hmm.
think Keanu, I could almost put this as a masterpiece for him because I think his athletic abilities, his good looks, his action movie star status with that kind of nonchalantness, but also heart of gold, standing up for the right thing and doing the right thing, but not wearing it too heavy. That
Hmm.
I am the one who's willing to sacrifice myself to save all these people and get the bad guy. There's none of that. There are no speeches. There's a little bit of anger that you see from him, which I was kind of happy to see. But even
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
anybody else would be like, gosh, to the moon and back. So and it's such an effortless performance, I think, from him. And especially knowing that this movie is made when it was made, where a lot of the stuff is practical. It's not
Hmm.
CGI. He's doing a lot of the action probably himself. And it just shows his athletic ability, but also just has a somebody who has like full control over their body, and it's just amazing to watch that. And I had not seen this movie in, I don't know, years and years. So he's so great in this movie. I can't imagine anybody else doing this movie, or if they would do it, it would be a totally different movie.
Yeah.
I think the
Exactly.
vibe of the movie is what it is because of him, I think. And then the dynamic between him and Sandra Bullock, like there's real chemistry. And I think
Oh
they
yeah.
even dated for a while, it seemed. I forget.
Yeah. I don't
Who
remember,
cares?
but
Who
yeah. Yeah.
knows?
Yeah.
But they have great on-screen chemistry without saying much. And the movie does a great job of kind of making you believe that, of course. But yeah, this is like a masterpiece performance, I think, from him in an action movie. And he carries the whole movie. You would think that the bus is carrying the movie. No, it's Keanu on the bus or under the bus carrying the movie.
Yeah, I'll talk about my thoughts on the film in a bit, but yeah, I think this is a very important like role for him, and one of his definitely iconic performances, especially, and I'll talk about this a lot when we get to the movie, like of people are like kids our age, like boys like 8 to 9, like this is a quintessential
Big movie.
Keanu movie. And this is not the first big action movie he was in. He was in Point Break a little bit before this, but that movie he's has his little, his nice longer Keanu hair. He's undercover with a gang of surfers, so it's like still in that sort of like Southern California surfer aesthetic that I associate with Keanu a lot. And this is not that. He like shaved his head, so he's got like basically like no hair at all, and he's trying to act like a big boy cop and doing his big cop things, and has a physicality like you talked about again that he does really well, and he's fitting into this post Die Hard action
Mm-hmm.
star role. Die Hard looms large over every action movie in the entire 90s. This is one of those classic Die Hard ripoffs. And what made that movie revolutionary was the everyday man hero who wins in the end, and you think he's going to win, but he's always hurting himself and he's getting injured, and you don't really know how he's going to make it out. And Keanu kind of fits that mold too. He's not like a big buff Arnold, kind of guy or have any kind of major skills. He's sort of a little soft looking because he's a little, he's a cute little guy. But
Not little.
I mean, he's cute.
He's
That's sort of,
very
I wouldn't
cute.
call him
Yeah.
hot necessarily, but he's got,
I
cute
think he's
boyish
very
looks.
hot in this movie.
Boyish looks is sort of how
Yeah.
I talk
Yeah.
about it with him. Um, but you believe everything that he is doing in this movie in terms of the him being this cop, and he gets injured in this, and like you don't know if he's gonna make it out. He's like riding underneath the bus and all these sort of things. I think that's really important. But then you also brought up what's really the key to this movie being a little special is the Sandra Bullock Keanu relationship, and the fact that it is a little bit of like a romance that is thrown into this, believable or not, but their chemistry is definitely real. That is clear. And that I think is something uniquely Keanu can do because of the sort of boyish looks. And it's like, oh, I can get why she'd immediately be charmed by this cop, even in this situation that she's under, which is a highly stressed situation. Yeah, okay, you want to flirt with the guy a little bit. It's,
I
he's,
mean, it's the
he's a
looks
good looking
part,
guy.
but he's very cute. But I think to me, what sells that kind of chemistry and relationship budding is that she sees the commitment that he has to
Hmm.
saving this, which is not or doing this and putting his own life on the line. It's not for some, personal bravado or anything like that. And that's where that heart of gold and then the commitment thing that you kind of called it earlier, which is,
Hmm.
I mean, Keanu does that for his movies, but also the character is doing that too. So I think how can you not love that about somebody,
Yeah.
And we as audience members are also loving that and rooting for him because it's such a, daring act to do
Hmm.
just to save other people's lives. So I think that's what sells it to me. I would also say the movie is mostly a silent film, which I think to its advantage, given its lead, because anybody else would be like yelling and screaming, and there'll be a lot of quippy dialogue. I mean, there is dialogue for sure, but when all the action is happening on the bus, like you don't hear Keanu say a lot.
Hmm.
It's all physical acting. You're seeing him in distress. And I myself was like, oh, I hope he's not got hurt. Like it felt very real,
Yeah.
what he's doing. But it's not a lot of dialogue, which I think, yeah, works for him, but also makes the movie stakes higher. Because often in these kind of movies, there's some like wisecracking hero, who's cracking a joke in like the most intense scene, which is also fun. Like I love that. But it doesn't make it real. And this feels really real, actually. It still felt real to me. I know what happens in the movie. I
Yeah.
was at the edge of my seat. And this is a movie from the 90s. Well done.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right on the dialogue piece. Like it's especially on this, and we'll like maybe transition to the film
Yeah.
in a sec because I have a lot of thoughts on that too. But it's he, I don't really buy the tough guy. Like, his little scowl when he gets kind of mad is doesn't really work for me. And when he delivers these
I
lines where he's
bought
like,
it a little
I'm
bit.
gonna rip out your spine. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that
Yeah.
line is terrible. That's fine. It's a
Yeah.
90s action movie, but like your delivery is like, oh man, I'm glad, there's not, he can't really pull off that sort of those, Bruce Willis type quips or
Right.
something like that, or even Arnold. So yeah, it's probably good that it isn't, it's not about the dialogue. But then just transition into the film then a little bit too. Like, I think just to piggyback on that point, this concept, just like the concept alone is so like simple and cinematic. There's a bomb on a bus. You got to drive it over 50 miles an hour, or else everyone dies. It's like, okay, like I get it.
Amazing.
Like I know what this is, and you don't need any more than that. And it's something immediately is going to involve a moving vehicle that cannot stop, and that's something that is a great action
A
set piece is going to
thrill.
mount from that. You know,
Yeah.
so that is smart. Even though this movie is again, and I say this not because I'm like knocking the film. It's like really dumb.
Oh,
And
yeah.
in a way that you want, it reminds me
Right.
a lot of this. There's a famous Onion video where they're interviewing the writer of like the Fast and the Furious franchise, and it's like a 5-year-old kid. He's like, the cars go fast. Oh my God. And what's gonna happen in the next movie? There's gonna be like a crash and the cars, and it's obviously making fun of how
I
dumb
love
those
this
movies are.
voice.
That's how he's talking. But
You got to
this
do
movie
all podcasts from now on in that voice.
But yeah, this movie feels like, and again, I say this as a positive, like it was written by like a 12-year-old boy. Like, oh, there's gonna be like a chase, and then like there's gonna be a hot bus driver, and that bus driver's gonna like fall in love with the cop at the end, and like there's a bomb, and there's this guy. It's like that makes this movie very charming to me in like the
Yeah.
fact that it is like so incredibly, yeah, like simple slash dumb in the best way. I mean, I'm trying to knock it. And though honestly, like this also too was a movie that I didn't watch a lot as a kid, even though everyone like in my class at this time, I would have been like 12 or something. This was every boy's favorite movie. Like you ask anyone in that class, like, oh, Speed. Like, that's my favorite. I love Speed. I
Yeah.
wasn't part of that crew for some reason. I don't really know why. Like, I saw it maybe once or twice, like a sleepover. And
Uh,
then in college, I watched it maybe once. And this is the first time since then. So it's been a while. But for some reason, it never really was in like my rotation. Not that I disliked it or anything. I just, it didn't hit me the way that like Die Hard did or, some of these other films at the time. But yeah, I'm actually kind of curious. Was this like big? Did this make
it
it
was
to like
huge.
cinemas in India and like same thing with every 12-year-old boy was like, this is my favorite movie.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
And I feel like I watched it many times too. And if we went to anyone else's place for like a dinner party and if they had, kids and, boys specifically, like you would watch the VHS of this, again.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
was amazing. I loved it so much. But I'd not watched it, I think, since that time, really, because the movie just felt so etched in my brain. That said, though, I'd completely forgotten about the pre-bus
Mm.
plot of the
The
movie.
elevator
Yeah,
issue
when a
and then
movie, I'm like, I say, is this the right movie? What movie is this? Who are these other people? And why is also Jeff Daniels? I mean, he's fine, but he's in a lot of these movies as a second person. I'm like, you should not be in any of these movies.
you
You
don't think you can pull it off, huh?
no, just the physicality
Oh.
and the neck, the loose neck. I'm like, go away. And
He's the
you're
best friend who has to get killed to motivate the hero. That's the role that he always plays. Like
very,
the partner who dies, and then the hero has
yeah.
to like, push
Although
through
I will
whatever.
give credit to Keanu for that acting. He's like visibly upset when he
Oh,
finds out about him dying. Like that was actually very good. I felt
agreed.
kind of bad. That's the only time I've thought about Jeff Daniels in a positive way in this movie.
Through Keanu's
So
performance, that's funny.
yeah, exactly. But no, I forgot about the rest of the part. But the movie from the bus, the moment the bus kicks in, even though it's dumb, they somehow make you believe it all, you
Oh
know?
yeah.
Even though Dennis Hopper is sort of, I don't know
Oh
what
my God.
movie he's in,
He's
it's
so
just not
goofy in this.
great. Yeah, it's just not great. And whenever they would cut to him, I'm like, I don't want to, even though this is dumb and I know you're the instigator of this, I just don't want to spend time with you. Just go back to the bus. Go back
No,
to them.
absolutely. But he feels again like if I'm a 12-year-old writing what a villain would be like, oh, he's like cackling and like he's mad he got his, severance taken away or whatever, his pension, and it's like
And we are
so
100 years old. Why are we so old? Like, get somebody else who's like, I don't know, maybe 35 or 40 or
yeah.
yeah, it's like so old.
He's so silly in this, but it fits the tone of the silliness of the film for sure. And even like kind of forgot this when the movie's over during like the credits, there's this insanely hilarious Billy Idol song where it's like, "I said speed, speed is what I need," and I'm like, I
Oh,
remember
by
this
then
in the
I'd moved
'90s.
on. I missed this part. Oh,
Yeah, it's like
wow.
you need like a song during the end credits that references the title of the film. Like I think that's just you have to have that if you're a '90s action movie. And I was dying laughing as that
Oh
thing was
my
going. I'd totally
gosh.
forgotten. I don't. Maybe I never got to that point in the VHS before. We'd always kind of like turn it off or whatever. But hilarious. I also just want to call out until like unless you just before we move on, it's like Sandra Bullock is so good in this movie and it is very unique. I think I was trying to find like another example of this. Like this made her career. Like she was in some things beforehand, but to basically become a movie star as a damsel in distress in an action movie, and now she does some action movies after this, but romantic comedies and like comedies and dramas. Like how it's just so unique that this happened, but she's so good in this. Like you forget she's not a giant star at the time because she just like shines on the screen immediately, and they have such good chemistry. And I'm a huge Sandra Bullock fan. We actually haven't covered her much on this show,
Yeah.
which is a little bit surprising, kind of a miss because I've always been a huge fan of hers. But she's
Same.
so good in this. It's
She's
just
so good in this.
amazing.
I also, when the movie starts, like she's sort of kind of dorky, and I'm like,
That's what I like about her, though.
what are
She's
you
got the
doing?
mousy
Like,
dorkiness to her.
yeah, but like she's sort of talking in like a nini kind of mincy kind of way, and that sort of felt a little off to me. But
Mm.
then when she's in the driver's seat, that's when she's a movie star right off the bat.
Hmm.
And you totally believe that, yeah, this person can do this, And that's so important. And that's the thing, like, yes, it's Keanu's movie, but you're right, it's her movie too, because if you don't believe that she could actually, take control of the bus and actually drive it the way she does, none of it would make sense. There
Hmm.
would be no movie. In fact, all the emotion and stress of the movie is on her shoulders because she's literally in the driver's seat.
Right.
He's doing other stuff. And so it's very I think artfully constructed, but like brilliantly cast for sure. And you see all the things like you're saying, like you get the comedic bits from her, you get
Hmm.
the action bits from her, you get the drama bits, you get the romance from her. Like it's a fully realized movie star performance right off the bat. And you don't even see her standing for like three-fourths of the movie, you
Right.
know?
No,
So
absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah, it ticks all the, and again, I don't say this in a negative way, but it is a very paint by numbers, giving you exactly what you want in a movie like this. And I think that's what makes it special in that respect. It's like, oh, of course the real bus driver gets shot, so a normal person has to step in, and of course she's good looking and attracted to the cop, and of course, it's like yeah, exactly. That's the 90s. This is what you want in these movies. And I think this is in a way like the quintessential 90s Die Hard ripoff film. Like this
Yes.
is the exemplification of what that genre of 90 of Die Hard knockoffs was, and this is the ultimate example of that. Speed.
Speed.
Less said about Speed 2 Cruise Control the better, but Speed.
I remember that too, because if you love this movie and then you're waiting for the next one and then you realize, and that movie I've not watched or ever want to
Oh, it's
watch, although
so
maybe I
bad.
should, maybe it's fine. But
It's
as a
not
kid,
good,
I
but
was
you
like,
should watch
oh,
it.
that was like the top movie conversation topic. Speed 2 is bad. I
Right.
remember
That
this.
was a running joke for a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
famously, Keanu Reeves chose Chain Reaction instead of that and didn't want to do a sequel, and then both movies flopped. And I haven't seen Chain Reaction, but I've not heard great things about it. But very quickly, he was able to recover with a movie we're about to get to, which is your masterpiece. But before then, I'll jump in and do my masterpiece for Keanu as we go through his filmography. So for me, my masterpiece for Keanu Reeves is 2003's John Wick Chapter 4. So this is a movie.
2023, right?
What did I say? 2003?
2003.
Oh my God. I'm stuck in the past. Thank you. 2023. We're talking about the 90s so much. I feel like, I'm
Why
de-aging.
leave?
Yeah. 2023, John Wick, Chapter 4. The plot summary of this film: John Wick uncovers a path to defeating the High Table. But before he can earn his freedom, Wick must face off against a new enemy with powerful alliances across the globe and forces that turn old friends into foes. So this is obviously starring Keanu Reeves, also Lawrence Fishburne, and directed by Chad Stilhensky. Apologies to him.
Zelensky. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm.
So this was a kind of a hard thing for me to pick one of like these masterpieces because there are so many. Obviously, the one we're about to talk about with yours, I think, could easily be in there. Like you said, maybe even Speed. Bill and Ted in some way I could also consider maybe his masterpiece. But with this, I settled on John Wick because not only is that the sort of latest of his iconic roles, but in a way, I think the crystallization of what is so unique about Keanu. He's got his classic cool coolness to him. He's wearing his black suit. He's got his long hair and his beard now, which is his quintessential late period Keanu look. His stilted acting style and witted acting really works in a role of an assassin who, has nothing left in the world. In the first John Wick, his wife gets killed. And that sort of, sorry, his wife is dead. His dog gets killed, and that's what motivates him to kind of come out of retirement. And then the movies kind of go from there. So it's not like he has, he needs to do these big emotional scenes. And it also is great at showcasing his dedication to his stunt performances, which I think, again, with The Matrix really started. Actually, the director of this movie, John Wick, was his stunt double in The
Right.
Matrix. And I think that is just showing his dedication and also a side of him that I think is very important to Keanu. Like he is in a way like an action star, not in a traditional sense like a Bruce Willis or a Schwarzenegger, but he does have action in his blood. And I just do think his effortless fight. I can't say that word. Effortlessness. There we go.
Yeah.
Fighting in this also too is like he's doing this ballet, this incredible like
Hmm.
stunt choreography in this movie, and it is him. And every time I see it, I'm sort of in awe of that he's able to do that. So for me, John Wick is the quintessential performance, and I picked this film because I think this film, the final one in the John Wick, at least so far, franchise, the fourth one, I think is the perfect encapsulation of what this franchise can do so well. And they really nailed it, and they went out on a high note. Wasn't really a big fan of the first movie, honestly. I thought it was kind of dumb and forgettable. And later did I go back and really kind of watch. I didn't see any of these in theaters other than the first one, actually. And even this one I didn't because I sort of disregarded it because the first movie I thought wasn't very good. But having gone back and I watched them all on streaming, I think this is definitely the quintessential John Wick performance, and I think John Wick is the quintessential Keanu performance. So that's sort of how I got to
Mm.
chapter four. So we'll talk about the
What
film in a second, but
what made this John Wick performance from him quintessential for you?
have you seen the other films?
I've seen the first one.
Okay, yeah, the first one's not good. But this one, because they heighten everything that John Wick had sort of done in the other films, where they dialed up the action sequences one level higher, the stakes, one level higher, the lore of this universe, which gets very, very silly, but then I started kind of like that it's so goofy, like one step higher. They sort of give you, because it is the final. They knew coming into this is going to be the last movie at least until, I mean, they'll probably make a five, who knows? And in the franchise, and so rarely too do things stick the ending. And I think they kind of went into this knowing, spoiler, like John Wick dies in the end of the movie. So they're really putting everything they have on the table. And I think that's why this movie nails the John Wick for me more than the third or the second movie. And especially the first one, they didn't know really what they had there. And it felt very, like a Taken sort of ripoff thing of like, oh, now we're
Mm.
gonna put Keanu Reeves in the action movie that no one will kind of like believe, and some revenge thing. And it just felt like a B movie, whereas this
Hmm.
feels like a an A+ film, and it's shot so beautifully, and they spend so much time crafting these sequences, which I'll get into more when we talk about the film, the specific standout sequences. But that's why for me this takes the John Wick essence and like dials it up, but not to the point of excess. It's like the perfect level of like they nailed it. Like it's big, but right to that line before it's like too big and then comically like over the top. At least for me. So that's why the
Hmm.
fourth one I had to bring that to the table
Hmm.
versus the other ones. So
Yeah,
what
I'd
was
never seen this one until for the podcast, and I watched the first one. I thought it was entertaining for sure, and you appreciate the choreography and the stunt performances even in the first one and the
yeah.
look of it and all that. So I enjoyed that, but this is not my genre per se of like, people getting killed and sloshed
Uh-huh.
all over the place. So I wasn't sort of like, oh, I gotta go watch all of these. But I'm very glad that you put this on the list because I'd heard a lot about the last one being like this masterpiece, epic movie, and it really is. I can't wait to talk about the movie. Like it blew me away of how good this movie was and how it's mounted and constructed. But we'll talk about that.
Hmm.
As far as Keanu goes, yeah, of course, it's like, steely kind of reserve, kind of wooden acting, but on the positive side, like the embodiment of action
Hmm.
that all these stunts just sort of feel, like you said, effortless and natural to him. Like that really comes through. I did feel though, without having like too much backgrounds and backstory from the other movies, because I haven't seen two and three, I felt like everybody around him really gets to not only dial it up but really perform and act that as the movie kind of progressed. I sort of felt like he got overshadowed by kind of pretty much everybody else in the movie, which is not to say that when he's on screen you can't look away, of course,
Hmm.
but in terms of like the carrying of the movie and the instigators of how the plot is moving and what people are doing, like I was so captivated by Bill Skarsgård. I'd never seen him in a movie before. I know all the performances that he's done, but I've not
Hmm.
seen him before. And I was like,
Without
oh,
the
this
makeup and
guy.
stuff, you mean? Yeah, just
Yeah,
like on his
exactly.
own.
Or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
actually, I've not seen the makeup movies either because I've not
Oh,
seen Nosferatu or
oh,
It.
oh, okay. Okay, okay.
So
Yeah.
fresh,
Yeah.
basically. I'm sure I've seen him in something, but I couldn't remember.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh wow, this guy is like just like off-kiltered enough and weird enough to really sell it, but also charismatic and appealing. And then the older guy with the fake teeth, the New York hotel boss, and all
Hmm.
these guys, with like grizzled faces, they were so interesting to me. The Japanese guy actor, I forget his name,
Donnie Yen,
Johnny, and
yeah, Chinese guy.
amazing.
Yeah, he's so good in this. Yeah.
No, I don't
Oh,
know.
I'm sorry, the Japanese guy, right, at the
Yeah,
at the
and the
hotel.
blind
Yeah.
one too, but also the
Yes, yes.
Japanese guy and his daughter,
Hmm.
like that sequence and him. So To me, yeah, I want to talk about the movie, but it didn't feel like Keanu's movie, even though, he dies. It felt like all these other people's movies, which is why I was asking, like, what made you put this one for sure as a movie, but as a Keanu kind of masterpiece performance? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that the thing that these, I guess we can talk about the movie in a little bit, the
Yeah.
John Wick series, that you don't really even see that they would necessarily go in this direction after the first one, is they create this entire world of all these really like wacky and interesting sort of assassin characters and rules and different levels of bureaucracy in these
Right.
assassin world and stuff
And the
that
codes and things.
oh,
Yeah.
so many different codes. And it's like because John Wick's character is after the first movie at least is sort of the he's an instigator to action, but the plot is sort of happening kind of around him. And because he doesn't have a lot to his character other than just being like cool and sort of like doesn't very barely ever says anything, which is also
Right.
a signature of the John Wick, series. And when he does, he has like, his famous catch, one of his famous catchphrases in the movie, just like, yeah. That's like a famous line from, it's like it is something where he has to carry the movie basically or the franchise basically just by his presence and his physicality and his just natural coolness because the story is happening around him. And that ratchets up more and more as the second one and then the third one. And yeah, this fourth one, there's like all these other layers of different universes and what I sort of feel about this franchise actually that makes it unique and it kind of piggies back on this point of like Keanu just as this sort of like empty vessel. This to me, this franchise, and really this movie too, is the closest, at least I have seen, a movie come to replicating a video game. In the sense
Yeah.
of he feels like you're playing him because there's not really much to him. The movie is just a series of cutscenes where there's like some dialogue and a little bit of plot, and then it goes into, the playable moment of like a 10-minute thing where I have to go through the
100%.
Japanese hotel, and now a cutscene where I'm in the desert, and now I'm like driving through Paris and I have to like do the controllers and sort of do this. And I'm not saying that again as a knock. I think as someone who doesn't play video games anymore, but did a lot like in high school and college, it feels like a video game. And so many video game adaptation movies tend to try to be like, oh, let's add a bunch of plot and let's put some characters in here. And at the end of the day, like that's not what makes video games, maybe
No.
the ones I played, at least in my era, interesting. It's like
Are
getting you
fun.
to the next thing, right? An interesting character that you're playing, but you don't really care too much about this guy. Just like how quickly can you get, to the next action sequence. And this movie exemplifies that even more so than the other John Wicks. It is just amazing action set piece, a little bit of a break, an amazing action set piece, ratcheting it up each time, and especially that last one where the camera's sort of above the hotel and in
Hmm.
these hotel rooms, and it's just following John Wick from like a bird's eye view, where he has this gun that sort of shoots like a big flame ball that like blows this guy up. Literally feels like you're playing like Unreal Tournament or Doom from like a third person
Right.
point of view, and it's
Doom.
just so amazingly constructed that whole sequence. And yeah, this movie literally did blow me away, and I kind of wish I had gotten in on this franchise when it was in theaters instead of abandoning it after the first movie, because I can't imagine this thing playing so well, like in IMAX. Just
Oh gosh, it
looks
would have been
beautiful.
amazing. Oh
Yeah, looks
yeah, I
so
mean,
beautiful.
it looks amazing. The world is amazing, and again, like often in these kind of movies, the actors that they cast, they're just sort of they don't care about them, right? But each of these actors, they're bringing it,
Oh
they
yeah.
really sell. Because that's the difference, right? Because often the video game movies, they just feel flat.
Hmm.
Even if they look great, this movie not only looks great, but there's like gravitas to it because of all these different performers, and the worlds feel real, even though they're not.
Right, right.
So, yeah, I was kind of blown away. I knew that the stunt choreography and all that would be amazing, but I think the movie just delivers a lot more on top of that. But then talking about the stunts, I mean, some of these sequences are just, I was like, how did they even do this?
Hmm.
And it felt really tactile. I'm sure there's special effects and such that are part of it, but it felt really real. I love the globe trotting nature. I love,
Oh yeah.
a passport movie, so I love that they're like all over the place, and they bring like the local kind of character of that place
Hmm.
in the action as well, which is what you want. So yeah, I just love the whole lore and the codes and the loophole, and then this final kind of
Right, the
battle that they're
confrontation.
ratcheting towards between the two of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I'd seen it in the theaters as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is just like the standout sequence. Like every sequence, as I'm thinking through this, is
Yeah,
kind of
what's
its
your
own
favorite
standout.
action sequence in the movie?
Yeah, like it's tough. I go between the sequence in the J Japanese hotel in
Yeah.
Tokyo, incredible, and another sort of piece that is very video game coded. I don't know if you picked up on this because they didn't talk about it too much in this movie, but they introduced this, I think, in the second John Wick, where all the assassins are wearing these suits,
Yeah.
but the suits are made out of bulletproof material. So you can shoot at someone and they're like covering their faces with their little suit jackets because, they're getting hit multiple times. And at some point, they're not totally invulnerable like a Superman. You can sort of shoot through it eventually. So again, it's like in a video game when you're fighting someone, they have the HP, the health points. You have to shoot them like maybe 4 or 5 times before they
Right,
actually
right,
go
right.
down. Unlike in real life, you get shot with a gun, you're dead. So that sequence, and then again, I have to give it up to that end when I was referencing earlier in the
Yeah.
Paris hotel where it's got that amazing sort of overhead shot. He's got this incredible gun. He just like boom through. You're just watching him go from room to room, and the guys are coming out of everywhere. And those are probably my that like tied between those two. What about? I mean, there's so many to choose
Yeah.
from, but what about you? The
It's
stairs
the
sequence,
same.
it's amazing too. I love that. When he's
Which
running up
one?
the stairs,
Oh
when he has
yeah,
to
the
go up the
stairs.
stairs and he rolls all the way back down and like he's fighting the guys just coming out of every which
Again, very
way.
video game like.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just so good. But really, like the director, I think you were kind of mentioning this too. It just looks beautiful. It looks like expensive. Like they put care into this. It's not just like a throwaway B movie. They're treating this like
No.
there's even an allusion to Lawrence of Arabia. After his
Yeah.
famous like, yeah, it cuts to like the famous Lawrence of Arabia cut to the sun
Yeah.
rising, with the match and everything.
So
Um,
good.
I
Yeah.
love it, and it doesn't feel it's cheesy, but it's like the right kind of cheesiness to it that I think this franchise, especially this last one, really nails. And if you haven't seen the second one is also really good. The third one is not great.
I've
It's
heard God
okay.
bad things about the third
It's
one.
it's
Yeah.
good, but it's a little too long and overstuffed. But it's a really fun and very unique franchise, especially starting after a movie that I don't think is really that good. Honestly, the first one.
I need to rewatch the first one again. I found it pretty good,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
wasn't like blown away like this one is.
Mhm.
And I just put it on the genre. I was like, oh, maybe I'm just not into it. But then turns out I am very into it if because this is done so well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure they'll bring it back in theaters, and I would love to go and see it all over again.
Yeah,
But
if
yeah,
they do a five, I'm sure they'll do some re-releases.
re-release exactly. Yeah,
And
yeah.
actually the spin-off this summer, Ballerina, I saw that. It was actually pretty good. And like
Oh
Keanu's
yeah.
it takes place between sequences in the fourth movie, the third movie, I forget which. So Keanu's in it actually a lot as John Wick, and she does an incredible job on Armis, and there's some really great action sequences in that too. But yeah, this is a fun franchise that kind of again I slept on it honestly. Like it was that's my bad. Until
Yeah,
last year, I think is when I watched them all. Just decided to catch up because I love Keanu, and I was like, shit, I really missed the missed it on this one. I should have been there from day two.
yeah, same. I feel similarly after watching this one. Yeah, it sort of feels like actually a 90s movie, but just done, in current time with the technology and the wherewithal that we have. It's not that different. I mean, it's almost like, we're gonna move to my next movie, but it's sort of capturing that and sprinkling the cheese, if you will,
Hmm.
off speed, but then making it look really amazing and current. So yeah, well done.
They
Yeah,
did
and
they did a
especially
great
in
job.
times like today where movies like these are so hard to make, the fact that they were able to carve this whole franchise and make it a big success is pretty incredible.
Absolutely. So yeah, with that, why don't we transition to your film, which not only stars Keanu, but like I said, the director of this movie was Keanu's stunt double in the one you're about to do. So another like Stone Cold classic. What do we
Yeah,
got?
you spoiled it like 8 times, so gotta stop doing that.
Yeah, I can't help it.
I mean, this is obviously a spoiler. There's no spoiler alert necessary because if you're doing a Keanu episode, how can you not have the Matrix? Like, I would love to listen to that podcast where somebody does not have Matrix on the Keanu list. I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know if that exists,
Matrix
but
Reloaded, maybe? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
I'm saying any of
any
the
of them. I know
Matrix.
what you're saying. Yeah, that
Yeah,
would
yeah,
be
yeah.
very. Yeah. I mean, yeah. We'll talk about it. So yeah, why don't you tell? Even though you're not supposed to, no one can know. Oh yeah, it's like no one can know what the Matrix is. But I think listeners, you can tell them. What is the plot summary of this?
When a beautiful stranger leads computer hacker Neo to a forbidden underworld, he discovers the shocking truth. The life he knows is the elaborate deception of an evil cyber intelligence. From 1999. Um, I mean, to me, like you were saying, Bill or Ted, Ted.
Ted. Yeah.
Ted is etched in your
Ted
mind,
Theodore Logan. Yeah.
right? In your mind for Keanu.
Yeah.
For me, and I think a lot of people, it'll be Neo.
Hmm.
Like when I think of Keanu, I think of the long black coat, the cool sunglasses, and then that visual of the bullet flying on
Oh,
top of him. You know,
yeah.
it's just etched in all of our minds, in the annals of kind of movie history. If aliens were to take over Earth, like this would be passed on, and I think this image will be in there,
Yeah.
which
Absolutely.
how many people have that in their career, and the fact that he has it is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know what more there is to say about this movie or the performance. We even covered it before in one of our episodes, but I just say in the context of talking about Keanu, like this is the full manifestation of his action stardom, full commitment to martial arts, and kind of just using his body as his instrument fully, but then also I think translating his kind of fish out of water,
Hmm.
confused slash I'm not sure, which is also a bit of wooden acting to this character and making something whole out of it, because he's done movies, one that we're going to talk about on your list, where he is sort of the observer, the confused person, who's not the agent of change or anything,
Hmm.
and that doesn't work.
Right.
This works in spades because there's
Hmm.
something about the genre. There's something about him, really understanding this world, and like you said up front, like trusting this material and trusting this genre, I guess, to go on and fully commit to it. So, yeah, it's an evergreen movie, evergreen performance, I think. And as you said, like the more you watch it, the more you uncover. I mean, I've sort of kind of put the lock on the uncovering because I feel like as kids of 80s and 90s, we spend decades trying to decode and unlock what is the Matrix and what is this movie. And so I don't do that anymore. I
You
feel
don't want to
like,
see how deep the rabbit hole actually goes.
yeah, thanks. I've moved past that. Uh, if anything, I think this movie now is like a nostalgia play for me to kind of, watch this. I don't watch this often, but whenever I
Mhm.
do, I'm like, oh, this reminds me of, my dorm corridor and what we were and how we were and how silly we were, but also how fun and like the stakes were arguing about this movie and what the Matrix is. Those were the stakes.
Hmm.
Pretty great.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was so yeah, we've talked about this in the fashion episode. And when I was seen this movie obviously, over 100 times, watched it a ton as a kid. And in terms of the Keanu piece,
Mm,
it's kind of hard and I'm curious on your remembering back to this. But
mm,
the before this movie came out, the impression of what this movie was going to be and the fact that Keanu Reeves was in this was seen, at least in my remembrance, as kind of a joke. Like Keanu Reeves,
mm,
like, yeah, he was in like Speed, which was a big hit, but it'd been 5 years since that. His career was kind of in a little lull. It's like, this guy is like going to be in a serious action movie wearing these shades. And like, this is ridiculous. And even that line in the trailer where he's like, I know Kung Fu. Yes, it's still funny in the context of the movie, but it was like, this guy can fight like that? Like, no, he can't. This is
mm,
stupid. Like, that was sort of the impression, at least, that I had, and it
mm.
seemed to be of this movie, which came out of nowhere. It was an end of March release. I remember seeing the trailers and being like, this was kind of dumb. Keanu Reeves, like, okay, I don't buy this. I'm not seeing this. And then I didn't see it until like the second weekend, I think, or the third, because
Mm.
everyone all of a sudden at school was like, did you see the freaking Matrix? Like, the stupid Matrix, like that movie? Trying to remember back to what I thought Keanu was at the time. And after this, it definitely, like, this is a masterpiece performance, like you said. Like, it's hard to imagine, like, if you're someone now who was born after this or wasn't like old enough before it came out to put yourself on these shoes of thinking like this on its face looks like it's not going to work.
Right.
Did you have that impression, or was that sort of or it's hard to even, again, it's hard to even remember pre-Matrix, to be honest. I
Yeah.
was trying to put myself back in those shoes and be like, yeah, we did think this was kind of dumb. that Keanu
Yeah.
Reeves is going to be in something like this.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, because living abroad in India, like I was aware of Speed, obviously, and then
Right.
this is the next movie of Keanu that comes that from what I can remember. So there's like
Oh,
no other baggage of like, oh, this his star is fallen or this is
right.
happening. So there was just none of that. It was just that the word of mouth spread pretty quickly. I knew who Keanu was, and then you watched the movie and your mind was blown.
Oh yeah. He immediately, I think this gets back to again, like you were mentioning this too, like this sort of fish out of water dopiness to him that again, I because of Ted, I associate back to him of that sort of like kind of like bumbling through things. And you need that as, his John Anderson persona. And then
Right.
it's not until the very, very end of the movie does he really become Neo, the chosen one, and then, he flies off at the end. And I think Keanu is unique in being able to do that because he has this effortless coolness anyway, even as John Anderson, who's like this hacker, he was
Right.
cool. Like, oh, this is cool hacker
Yeah,
guy,
yeah.
working in this office. And like, yeah, I don't believe he can ever do kung fu because I didn't see him like that until the movie came out. But like, no, he's still cool. Like, I get this. And then by the end, he's like the coolest. I mean, talk about cool. And again, it is very dated now, but like those long black trench coats, those little black sunglasses. I mean, we had a whole fashion episode on this, so I don't want to rehash all of that. But like, this is the quintessential look of like a cool guy. Was him. And all those guns were like so cool in that way like back then that it just yeah, every time I watch this I have the similar feelings like going back to like 1999 and be like, yeah, this was like the coolest thing you've ever seen as like an 18-year-old or whatever. It was the freaking Matrix,
Yeah.
and it was Keanu in the Matrix too. It was so much. He is so indelibly linked to the success of this film, the success of the character. And yeah, this is like his totemic performance.
Definitely. I think still very cool, like fashion
Oh,
comes and goes,
oh yeah.
especially the 90s are totally back. Like you look around, whether you want it or not, but they're back fashion wise for sure. But this I would actually love to see come back in a big way. I mean, it's not just Neo, like all of them, like, you know, Carrie Ann Moss and Lauren Fishburne, like everybody looks absolutely incredible and cool. And I don't know how much this is nostalgia speaking, because we saw these people versus maybe young people don't find them cool. I don't know, but to me, they're
Yeah.
still very cool.
No, absolutely. And I think the brilliance of the film, honestly, and what the Wachowski siblings were able to do. And it's hard, I think, to really understand this now if you didn't sort of grow up before The Matrix, is they took all of these things that were subcultures
Mm,
and made them mainstream. The like
mhm.
this whole anime is everywhere now, and like
Everywhere now.
it
Yeah.
taken over like kids stuff, and everyone is seeing all these things and know about it. They know the lexicon of what anime style is, or manga and all the things that were at the time. No, those were sort of underground things. Maybe people in the comic book club and read the books that were inspired by or inspired the Matrix. A lot of the John Woo Hong Kong action style was just starting to kind of take off a little bit. But the average person probably hadn't seen Hard Boiled, in 1999, even
Right.
though now, it's got re-released this summer and it's a classic. And then too, like the hacker culture, computers were for nerds back then. Like not everyone
Yeah.
had a smartphone in their pocket or like would be quote unquote like vibe coding and stuff. Like it was just the nerds. And it brought that sort of subculture into the mainstream, let alone like, the S&M thing and the leather stuff and all these different, it's
Music
like
videos.
totally. The techno music too, like that was at least in the
Oh,
States. I know it was huge in Europe and stuff, but in the United States, like that wasn't a major
mm.
genre. And this is one of the movies that got me into that, and that's one of my favorite genres now. So like they were able to basically create a stew of all these cool subcultures on their own, put it together into this mix, and then feed it to the mainstream, and it became even cooler. It's just the
It's
brilliance of
kind
that
of
is
genius.
very
Yeah.
overlooked. I don't think they were trying to do it necessarily. It was just much like Tarantino sort of funnels all the things that he likes into his
Right.
films that are these little niches. They took all these things as well, though they're all the things they took ended up being mainstream now. A lot maybe because of the Matrix, or just naturally they're ahead of the curve on a lot of these things. But
I
it's
think so
it's
too.
so
I think,
fascinating.
yeah, they had a huge role. And you're right. I think when you're trying to make something cool because you think it's cool and or more like you think people will find it cool, it doesn't become cool.
Right,
But
right.
when you put something that you are authentically into, which is what it feels like, it just feels like the mashup of that feels so cool and lived in and not put on.
Mhm.
And you kind of want this ride and journey with it. And then on top of all the mashups, the fact that there's like so much depth to the movie and how these characters are realized and what this world is and what it says about humanity and civilization and all of that. Like this movie is packed with so much stuff,
Hmm.
so yeah, it's one of those defining movies, I think, always will be. And to your point, like all these subcultures became kind of mainstream,
Hmm.
action movies became totally different, music in movies became totally different. Um, but what's surprising to me is, I don't know about you, but when I watch this movie now, I'm still kind of surprised by it, even
Hmm.
though all this has been ripped off and done and is part of the mainstream. There's something still very fresh about this movie. I don't know.
Oh, totally. I still get amazed by it, even though I
Yeah.
know, the bullet time sequences are coming and they're etched in my mind because, I've been watching them so many times. But it's still like, what, I'm like, whoa.
Whoa.
I still that is still the same
Yeah.
reaction. And maybe it is nostalgia. And if we talk to like a 15-year-old who watches it now, they might still think it's cool, but I don't know. But at least for me, it is. And this a lot of it is again Keanu in this. I don't think anyone others, I've talked of like, oh, Will Smith was offered it and turned it down, and all these different actors
Mm,
were sort of, up for this role. But I really think that Keanu is what you needed for this. Like with that,
yeah.
he is the very important piece that makes this movie work. And if it was
Yeah.
any other star or an unnamed actor, I just don't think it would have been the same thing. Like he is so
No,
necessary for this.
totally agree. Okay, should we do our wild cards?
Let's do them. So I will start then, and my wild card is Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992. So I guess actually this is officially this episode is going to drop around Halloween. We don't usually do Halloween episodes, but I figured get in some spooky thing in here for the spooky season. So this is our spooky movie wild card here. This movie was from, like I said, 1992, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, starring Gary Oldman, Winona Ryder, Anthony Hopkins, Keanu Reeves. The IMDb plot summary: centuries-old vampire Count Dracula comes to England to seduce his barrister Jonathan Harker's fiancée, Mina Murray, and wreak havoc in the foreign land. So I have a lot to say about this film, but first, Keanu. And this is a wild card, so this is something that was a swing for him, and I understand sort of why Coppola cast him, and I think some of those reasons are defensible. But I do think this is one of those performances that raises the question of, does one bad performance sink an entire movie? To be honest, I think he just really doesn't work in this. So he plays Jonathan Harker, who is I don't know if just a Dracula. I mean, everyone knows Dracula, but the excuse me, the book is basically the first act of it is him, his diaries, going to Transylvania. So he's kind of the main character for the audience for at least the first act of the book and the movie, and then kind of disappears when Dracula goes to London, and then it's a lot of the London hierarchy, and then Van Helsing kind of comes in there, and then Harker comes back at the end. So he's not the full main character throughout the entire story, but the first act of the movie rests on his shoulders, especially as the audience surrogate, and his wooden acting just does not work here. Jonathan, it's like a bad accent. He's trying to do like some
Oh
kind of
no. Yeah.
English accent, but it comes across still feeling like a surfer who's forced to, like, it's a high school surfer who has to do play, and you have to, as a part of your thing, you have to graduate, you have to be in one play, and he was cast as Jonathan Harker because maybe he was a popular kid, and now he's in this and he doesn't really know what he's doing. And yes, I think again, Coppola and defenders will say, well, Jonathan Harker's in over his head and he doesn't really know what he's doing either, and it's like fair, but it doesn't work. And I think it comes. I was thinking about this a lot on this rewatch, and that we were talking all these things about Keanu being this cool character as effortless cool, and that when it fits the role, it works really well, and the wooden acting kind of works in that sense. Jonathan Harker's not meant to be a cool guy. He's meant to be sort of like a bit of a stiff, like a boring, lawyer who's doing this paperwork, and in a way, the contrast to how Dracula in the book and in this movie too is supposed to be the cool guy who's going after this boring dude's wife and seducing her, and there's all these things, and he's like this cool, suave guy putting the moves, and Harker's supposed to be kind of like an empty suit, and that is why I don't think this works. If he was supposed to be a cool guy, like maybe he's playing Van Helsing and they age him down, and or even Dracula in a weird way. Like maybe he can pull that off in some way. But Yeah, unfortunately, this just does not work, and he still has his little like kind of goofy hair from the '90s, and then they do this thing, which again in the story, as he becomes Dracula gets stronger, Harker gets weaker, and he starts getting gray hair. But it literally looks like those Halloween costumes when like you play an old man and you spray can on like gray. It just looks bad. Yeah, like I'll talk about the movie, which I do actually like absolutely love, and then we can maybe debate whether one performance will ruin or not. But yeah, unfortunately, this just does not. I try every time I watch. I'm like, well, maybe this time is the time I can convince myself that Keanu works in this, and yeah, doesn't work. I don't. What about you on this? Are you on my side? Or are you going to defend Keanu in this?
Can you imagine if I came back and said, "Oh, this is a masterpiece performance"?
That honestly, that'd be a fun debate. I think the listeners
That
might
would be
want
a
to,
fun debate.
but I don't think that's gonna happen, huh?
No, it's really bad. It's
Yeah.
really bad, and for all the reasons you said, like totally miscast, you know, and to the point like. Sometimes people are miscast and you're like, oh, what movie are you in? You're doing something else and not what the movie is or what have you. This is like more like, where are you? Is someone there? I think
Hmm.
all the stuff is happening around him. And I get like he's a boring suit, but you're entering a Count Dracula creepy, mansion. Like the carriage you came in had this, I don't know what person driving it. Is that even a person? What is it? You are
Demonic forces.
completely unfazed by any of this. And if the note was look confused, it's not even that. It's more like, oh, did I just walk on this set on my way to a different set? Maybe.
Or
It's
he's like
it's
he's the stand-in, and they like the director forgets that it's actually the actor is still in the trailer,
right.
and they're like, go, and the stand-in's like,
Sure, I'm
yeah.
here.
It's like, literally, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I can't remember the last time I saw somebody like that in a movie, and then you add the accent, you add the look to it. He looks totally contemporary. There's
Yeah.
something about, him in a period setting, and he's done a bunch of those. They don't work because he's
Hmm.
such a contemporary person. So I don't even know if the character was cool, it would work because his kind of coolness is like a different kind of coolness. Like as we've talked through the entire
Modern.
episode. It's
Yeah.
it's more modern, it's
Mm.
more nonchalant, it's not in your face cool, and that just would not work in this period.
Hmm.
So yeah, completely miscast, and I was almost like scared for him. So when he vanished and when all the boob girls came on top of him, like, okay, take him, go away.
The
I was
brides can take
relieved.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and and to transition to the film too, I think the movie gets, even though the first act is phenomenal with everything else, in my view, when he leaves the film for basically the most of the second act and actually kind of a lot of the third too, the movie gets it's like freed from this awkwardness of just watching this performance. It just like
right.
doesn't work. Like he's sort of it's like being in a live theater where you see this actor kind of bombing. You're sort of a little bit like uncomfortable seeing something like
Right.
that.
It
Like
makes you anxious and takes you out of the movie, frankly.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. But in terms of the film, this is so I'm a was read the book Dracula in when I was pretty young, loved it, and this was the movie that was the at least until that time, and maybe even now, the most faithful adaptation of what the book, how the book goes and what the narrative is like, way more so than like the Bela Lugosi movies and all the Christopher Lee
Mm,
movies. They took a lot of liberties with the plot, and this sticks pretty close to what the main plot of the book is. And I also am like huge. I love vampires. I love Dracula and the lore of it. And I think just what Coppola did with this, like visually, and the way that he mounted this movie is just so unique, amazing. The he was inspired by the fact the book was written in the 1890s, and he would say that was when film was invented. Like the Lumiere brothers invented movies in that
mm,
decade. So he's going back and using so many old-fashioned techniques. There were visual
mm.
effects, but most of it was in camera. There's incredible behind the scenes shots of how he did this one sequence where there's a train kind of going by with Jonathan Harker in it going into Transylvania, and then
Right,
he's writing in his diary, so you see like the diary at the bottom of the shot, and then the train ahead of it. And
right.
normally you just take two shots, composite them together, in post. But this they because they did it in camera, they made like a 40-foot version of the diary and then put this little model train on the top and angled the camera so it looked like a small book that he's writing in. Like it's just wild. It's so cool. And the opening
Wow.
sequence when the Turks are, attacking the little like puppet guys, the soldiers. I just love the look of this movie.
Wow.
The score
That's
is incredible, and
amazing.
it's just the production technique on this is just unmatched, and I love that the creativity that Coppola to brings to this thing. And Gary Oldman just absolutely destroys as Dracula. It's such a different performance, so unique, and you really feel that they turn this into a love story of this
Mm.
guy who is just believes in star-crossed lovers, and the wife that got killed back in the day is now Mina is her, and he's trying to like seduce her, but because he's in love with her. And I don't know, the romance angle that he dials up in this too just really hits it for me. So this movie honestly might be 5 stars if it wasn't for Keanu Reeves, maybe. So I'd put it more like a 4 out of 5. And I've grown to like it more and more over the years too. The more times I see it, the more I can, I think, get past the Keanu Reeves part. But no, I am a huge fan of this movie. I think it's one of Coppola's like very close to like kind of final masterpieces. But
Mm.
what about you? Have you seen this before, and what was your thoughts
No,
on
I'd never seen it before. Always wanted to, but I just was like, oh, it's just again like horror
it? Too scary?
vampires.
Too scary?
Not too scary, just not interested, you
That's not
know?
your thing. Yeah, you're a
Yeah,
werewolf
so
guy. We all know that. Not just-
sure.
yeah. That's why we never record under a full moon. I don't know if I'm giving something away here, but sorry, what were you saying?
Uh, yeah, the next episode I might look different, you know?
Oh, little
Never
tease. We'll
know.
see.
No, but I just was like, I don't know. This is, I maybe I sort of made up my mind that I know what this is going to be like because there
Hmm.
have been so many movies of, of this ilk. But yeah, from the opening shot itself, I just was blown away by how this movie feels and looks. And I didn't know about the in-camera stuff that you're talking about, but to me, it felt like if an old book, from 18 whatever that has like a thick cover and pages and like drawings in it with like gold paint that has now tarnished, over centuries. If somebody did like a physical manifestation of that book in a movie, what would that feel like? That's how I felt watching the movie.
Hmm.
And I think that's just, I've never felt that emotion before watching anything like that. I felt like I was inside a book that was an ancient book, So, yeah, the costume, the production design, how the movie is shot and mounted, like, it's like, yeah, I was speechless. I don't think there's so many beautifully made movies
Hmm.
that are period and what have so much detail, but I think you're right. It's the in-camera stuff now that you've told me that makes it completely different, I think. It kind of almost has like a Powell and Pressburger
Yeah, it does
quality
actually.
to
You're
it,
right. The
you know?
use of color and the
Yeah.
cinematography in a lot of different scenes.
It's
Especially, I love the first act. The Transylvania stuff in that
it's
castle, and especially that version of Dracula with this really big, long red sort of robe that he's
it's
wearing, and how the
amazing.
shadow has its own,
Yeah, it's his
presence in the
own
back,
thing. Yeah, and
which
the
was all
yeah.
again done practically on set. They had some guy like doing the
Oh
shadow,
wow.
and also too that sequence when he first goes to London, it's like an old-fashioned camera style of like shaky cam, and they
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
like
yeah.
restored an old sort of crank silent film camera to shoot those
Wow.
scenes in London of that POV of like him sort of coming into this world. It just, yeah, Coppola was on something else when he
Something
made
else,
this,
yeah.
um.
But what I love is that sometimes people do this step and it feels kind of more, vanity or whatever, but it feels really in service of the story and it makes, I didn't know about any of this stuff and it made my experience of watching the movie just so much textural and transportive because of
Mhm.
that. So it was very much in service of the story, which is what you want ideally, So yeah, in that department, I think the movie is fantastic. I I have to watch it one more time for sure to have like a fully formed opinion on this, but I think it's partly because of Keanu,
Mhm.
for sure,
Mhm.
individually, but also Gary Oldman juxtaposed with him. I just was laughing in the
Right.
first act of the movie. I mean, at Keanu, but also at Gary Oldman, because the contrast of their performances because of Keanu's kind of thing that we've talked about makes Gary Oldman sort of also feel kind of ludicrous, which is
Hmm.
maybe the point, but it took me a while. Like the first act looks beautiful and amazing for sure, but as a movie, I think it's much later when he's in London and when he's seducing Winona Ryder's character. That's when I started to feel like, okay, now I know what tone we are in and what is happening in the movie. Not plot wise, but like felt more realized. Versus in the beginning, I was like, oh, I thought this movie would be scary. I'm just laughing. I guess it's not a scary movie.
Right.
And then, oh, now it's scary. And then, oh, it's overly sexual as well.
Hmm.
So I was very disoriented in this whole movie, to be very honest with you. At the same time, appreciating all the crafts work, but also just like the tonal shift because of some of these performance mismatches and maybe just the tone mismatch as well. So I need to go watch it again. That said, despite all of that, I think I just couldn't stop thinking about the movie. I
Hmm.
just couldn't stop thinking about how it looked and felt. I just couldn't stop thinking about just Gary Oldman's like posture of how
Hmm.
he like carried himself and walked around, even though it felt a bit play acting, like in the opposite direction of
Right.
Keanu's play acting. Like this is a
Yeah.
play that he did sign up and won the contest for.
Hmm.
Gary, not
Hmm.
like Keanu just walked on a different set of a different play. But yeah, I got to watch it again for sure. It's something else. And maybe that's the point. It captures kind of this soul of this book, I suppose, in a kind of indescribable way, it seems.
Yeah, yeah. I think I agree with everything you said in terms of like the tonal shifts in this, and everything is like big and like uh emotions. Like it's all about big kind of emotions, whether it's sensuality, love, violence. There's some obviously horror elements when he's this giant bat
Right.
creature and doing this stuff kind of at the end of the movie. And that is what I like. It's more like that gothic over the top tone is what I
Right.
do like about it. But you're right, and it took me a while to kind of appreciate the first act for what it is with the Keanu piece, trying to kind of drag it down a little bit. But I really, every time I see this, I get more in awe of just Gary Oldman's performance because, Dracula is an iconic role that is, I think, the most, I don't know, I think it's either Sherlock Holmes or Dracula is like the most performed character of all time on screen. I can't
Mm,
remember which one, but he's performed so many different times. And, obviously the Bela Lugosi version of Dracula is so famous. And the performance that Gary Oldman brings out in this is so out of left field, so different than any other way that Dracula's been performed. Again, from the physicality of this old, weird, up until that time at least, this old sort of weird guy, and then he becomes this like hot, sexy, guy when he's
mm,
in England. It's just like I just am in awe of that. How he's able
yeah,
to approach this role and not feel burdened by the past and approach it his own way. And this is how I'm going to play Dracula. And again, this is an iconic performance. Like that, him in that red gown with the big, puffy, white hair. People recognize that now as Dracula.
totally.
And it's
And
not
just
just the Bela Lugosi thing.
totally. And the makeup and the teeth and just the commitment. And then you said this, like, there's prosthetics and all of that stuff, but what is searing from him is the tragedy,
Hmm.
and that is connected through because sometimes people when they become hot and sexy because they're transformed, it's like a different person. No, but the in this case, even without the prosthetics, the tragedy of the person kind of lives through, and that's kind of the genius of a great performance for sure.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's that heart of this turning. It was the take I think that Coppola wanted to make on this is turning
Yeah,
this movie into a gothic tragic romance and not just a spooky horror. Like the tone is a a tragic romance basically, and that's what carries through, and especially the second and third acts. It is a movie about Dracula and his forever long lost wife. Reincarnated as Mina Murray's Winona Ryder's character is
who I
is
thought was
unique.
also very good in the movie. I quite liked her
I
actually.
think everyone works really well. I love Anthony Hopkins's
Oh,
Van
he's
Helsing
great.
is
Van Helsing,
so
so
chewing up
great.
all the scenes in all the right ways, and it's just yeah. Again to bring it back to Keanu, and I'm sure he'd feel bad of me shining a light on this again because I'm sure it was hard. I mean, they destroyed him in the
I bet.
reviews. with this movie, but I just unfortunately like I try every time, and it doesn't.
No, it's bad and it's not. And because, like you said, like because the movie's from his point of view in the beginning, it actually has ripple effects because of
Mhm,
that. You know, it's
mhm.
not just like, oh, here's one character who's not good, so you can sort of remove him. It leads to all these like weird tonal issues
Mhm.
because of the way the movie starts and who he's opposite, you know? It's yeah,
Yeah,
it's too
so
bad.
it is too bad, but it's still a movie that I do recommend, especially around this time of
Yes.
year, Halloween time. If you want to watch a Reeves movie with a scary performance by Keanu Reeves, I would do Bram Stoker's Dracula, like we just talked about. So,
More like scared performance.
yeah, yeah. Okay, making a bit of a tonal shift to a different genre for your wild card. What do you have for us?
So my wild card is from 2003, Something's Gotta Give, directed by Nancy Myers, starring the late great Diane Keaton.
Yes, R.I.P. Yeah.
Uh, I had put this movie on the list before this tragic news, but
Hmm.
I, yeah, we'll get into that. But I'm glad that we get to talk about her through this movie
Yes, me too.
in after her passing. What a
Hmm.
legend! Jack Nicholson, Keanu Reeves, Amanda Peet, Frances McDormand. This is like a stacked cast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Quick logline. A swinger on the cusp of being a senior citizen with a taste of young women falls in love with an accomplished woman closer to his age. No, no, no. This
Cusp of being a senior citizen, he's an old guy.
also that, but also this logline needs to be flipped from Diane's point
Oh,
of view.
oh, oh.
This is a wrong logline. I
Okay,
disagree.
I think that could be debated, but anyway,
No,
yeah.
this is her movie. It's her story in my
Okay,
mind.
okay, okay. Anyway, let's
Yes.
yeah. We can talk about that when we talk about the movie maybe, but
Yes.
yeah.
But so this is, I want to put this as Keanu's wild card, and we'll talk about the movie separately,
Hmm.
which is that this is something that we've not seen him do very often, or maybe this is the only time where he's not an action person, he's not a science fiction action star, he's in a romantic comedy, and more importantly, he's the dreamboat. He is this ideal guy who doesn't really exist in real life. And I think that's a pretty tall order to sell. Uh, and he sells it. I mean, I think this is a wild card that actually lands where, and I don't know, every time I watch, I love this movie. Every time I watch him in the movie, I'm like, I wish he'd pursued more of this as well, like this kind of a movie or this kind of a performance. But I think what is consistent is what we've been talking about throughout the episode is that the heart of gold and goodness and sincerity, like that shows it's unvarnished completely. You know, this person may not be real, but you can't help fall for him, you know, because there's, yeah, it's that emanating kind of light from him. And plus, he looks so good in this movie. You know, this is like his peak, I think, of how he looks. I mean, he looks good in many, many chapters of his life, including now. But for me, like, this will always be, I mean, Matrix is like cool, cool.
Yeah.
This is like the guy that you want to, be with, sort of
Hmm.
cool. Like, so good, I think. So I'm so glad that he did this movie. And so, yeah, that's why this is my wild card that actually lands. And he sells it. I think, like, the movie will fall apart if Diane is not seriously considering him. We will fall apart if you don't believe that he is falling for
For her.
somebody like Diane, who's
Right.
older and what have you, but he sells it and he's not wooden, he's charming. And there's something, yes, effortless, like all of his action movies, and maybe a little dopey, but he's a doctor, so he's smart at the same time. I've not seen him play smart before. So,
And have it
so,
work. Yeah,
and it
yeah.
works.
Right.
So it's a tall order. I mean, maybe this is his best actor performance, actually, because it feels so far from him, but yet rooted in who he is.
Yeah, so again, we'll talk about the film, which is the first time I've seen it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in a sec. But what surprised me about this and his performance in it was, yeah, he does nail the heartthrob,
Yeah.
Middle-aged kind of heartthrob, the McDreamy, McSteamy type of, to use Grey's Anatomy reference there. And he had always been, even, when he was coming up, like with Bill and Ted and like Point Break and all these things, women thought he was hot. Like he was definitely a hot heartthrob, but I personally like never saw that. Like I was saying in the beginning,
Mm,
like, yeah, he's cute, but like I don't see him as like a hot guy playing like a, a romance, target of romance, even though, yes, like there was in movies, obviously, where he's had romantic connections, like even with Speed, there was a little bit of a romance there, and he's played romantic leads kind of a little bit before, but this I'm like, oh, I get it now. I get why he is a heartthrob to a whole generation and maybe multiple generations of women, and he's not just like a cute guy. He's like no, he's like a dreamy kind of hot guy, and
yeah.
it's his the cool persona that he has in this is this effortlessly cool, just like doctor who isn't, like an arrogant dick about the fact that he's a doctor, right? A lot of times in movies, like, oh, the doctor guy is like, oh, I'm a doctor, so everyone has to love me, and I'm kind of arrogant because I'm a doctor. And like, this is like, no, he could be, a pharmacist or a person pumping gas, but he would still have this sort of like effortless coolness that you buy. It is sincere. You think, oh, he's actually attracted to Diane Keaton, and there could be something that could be a relationship that could kind of work out with this. So yeah, he totally works in this and is a side of him that I hadn't seen at least in the movies. I mean, yeah, yes, he's been in other movies maybe like this before. I just haven't seen them. Where I buy it. Yeah, he's totally can do this. He can do this too. He can
Yeah.
be Neo and John Wick and like, the hot doctor that all the, middle-aged women, postmenopausal women are like fawning over.
Or all women, or really
All women,
everyone.
right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
right. I
yeah,
just mean in
this
this
is
this movie, which is more for the
older.
moms out there. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. And yeah, speaking of the movie, like I
Yeah.
think, you have to be just the way there's a John Wick universe where you have to suspend disbelief. There's a Nancy Myers universe, and you have to suspend belief and kind of, be on it and in it. And yes, on the surface, this movie is kind of fun with like beautiful homes and everyone's wearing, beige and white and, and there's some hijinks and what have you. And you can just enjoy that, or you might poke at it. Oh, that doesn't make sense. This doesn't feel believable. So this, depending on where you fall. But I think what the genius of this movie is in its subject matter and the two lead performances, which are Diane and Jack Nicholson, where
Hmm.
you really meet people who, firstly, you're seeing like fully realized people who are older, but in like very different chapters of their life. One person in Diane who's kind of achieved what she wanted to, but she sort of closed it all off. She's closed off love, desire, vulnerability, all of that. Versus Jack, who is, all floodgates are open. And it's the clash of those two people. And, what could once again rediscovering yourself and finding who you used to be or what you want to be later in life might feel like, and is that even possible? So there's something pretty deep about that, especially as I get older in my life. I'm like, oh yeah, this movie gets deeper the more I watch it. But I think what sells it entirely is, I think, Diane Keaton's performance, who is a singular legendary performer. There's no one like Diane Keaton. There will never be anybody like Diane Keaton. And this is not just like her style, the way she shows up, but I think the energy that she brings to her movies, and then just the longevity of her career and the
Oh yeah.
surprise that she is able to bring. Like when I think of her, I think of Annie Hall, or I think of somebody who's a little bit ditzy, a little bit unsure. And then you watch something like this, where this is a very raw, vulnerable, but confident performance. This is not a ditzy person. This is a person who's very together, actually very clenched, and then is almost surprised and shocked by what is happening to her and why is she feeling.
Hmm.
And that's so hard to play, right? Like you're wrestling with your own kind of feelings and emotions as they're happening, right then. And that's why she's an Oscar nominee for a movie like this, which usually would not get an Oscar nomination. But I think she blows it out of the park, looks incredible, has genuine chemistry with both men.
Hmm.
And it's just a delight, to watch her and just watch this movie. And Jack is amazing too. Jack is
Oh
Jack. I
my
love
God,
Jack.
yeah. Yeah, so I think we've covered a couple of Nancy Meyers movies. Actually, yeah, most of them on this podcast. Who is a director I'm not really that big of a fan of. I think Parent Trap is the only one that I'll sort of say that I like. So I was going into this sort of knowing that people had really liked it and being like, okay, like I know I have a lot of that usually those movies don't land with me. And I enjoyed this a lot, and I think it really had to go down to Diane and Jack. Whereas some of the issues that I start, like the things of like starting to overthink a movie is usually when it's not working for you. And then you start asking, wait a second, like that doesn't make sense or this shouldn't be happening. And I'm just so enthralled by what Diane and Jack are both doing. And their scenes separately, their scenes together, their characterizations of their relationship. You sort of like forget all that, which is what you want. Similar to like to John Wick. Like
Right.
if you're enjoying it, you don't question it. And when you start getting bored, then you start questioning it. And yeah, it could probably fall apart under scrutiny, but that's not the point of the movie.
No.
And this movie, I'm sure you could poke at and stuff, but because of Diane Keaton and Jack Nicholson, it's like I don't know. It was like so cozy and fun, and yeah, like a harmless little yeah romance, lighthearted. The stakes aren't super high necessarily. I mean, I guess Jack's like having heart attacks in the movie, so there's a little bit of death
I
kind
think
of.
the stakes are very high,
You
for
think
these
so?
people.
Oh,
And
for those people, right,
yeah,
right, right.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just they were so, and especially like Dan Keenan. I did see this, after her passing. When you put it in here, I'm so glad that you did too, because yeah, just thinking like what other actress could at that age, especially like pull off such a like a rounded kind of character like this and not have it fall into like a caricature, which
Hmm.
it could have easily. And yes,
Totally.
I credit to the writer a little bit too, but also I think in how she's performing this, where you do believe that she is torn between like her own single life and then Jack being there, and obviously the future potentially with Keanu's character. I just was like, yeah, I wanna hang out with these people.
Yeah.
And she's so good to it, like the physical comedy aspects, which I think even
Oh,
going
the
back to
run-ins
those,
that they have and they're alone in the home, both
so
of
funny.
them. It's and this is the thing, they are amazing, and sorry to interrupt, but this is Nancy's genius. Like this is like we are talking Cary Grant level of sort of, screwball
Hmm.
comedy, Claudette Colbert, and which is so hard to pull off in modern times. And she's able to do that with these actors, with the writing and just how it all comes together. It's magic,
Absolutely, and their chemistry
Yeah,
is just. I think maybe the only time they'd acted together was Reds. I don't know if they were in another
yeah,
movie since maybe it was just
that's it.
Reds then. But it's like immediately I'm like, oh, these are like two huge, like legendary film actors at a late phase in their career, but are still able to pull off what they do best, but also their, that the back and forth between them. Like you're right, it does feel a lot like a screwball, a modern take on like an old screwball comedy. You need that rat-a-tat, repartee between
Yeah,
the two leads in situations that are kind of a little silly, sometimes a little bit over the top, but it works just because the actors can pull it off. It's just yeah, it was very yeah, very charming
yeah.
for both. And I just reminded me too of just how good Jack was at this, like the post as good as it gets sort of phase of his career where he was doing more of these lighthearted comedies before he retired, and how good he is at that. Like he is just such a just an amazing what a freaking
It's
screen
like a
legend who like
charm
so
factory.
charming at that age with everyone, and like you kind of yeah, you buy why he's such a ladies man, but then you can't be too hard on the guy because like you kind of hits Jack Nicholson, and yeah, he just so but then he can pull off the heart too of like at some point in this movie I'm like, are they gonna kill him? Like I thought maybe they might kill him off like they do in the play that she writes.
Right.
And I thought maybe that movie could go there because
Yeah.
sometimes these movies have sort of more like heartfelt kind of tragic endings to them. But luckily he survives. But yeah, really the only thing I can say about it is a little long, a little bit
Yeah.
long for me. But no, I'm really glad you put this on here as a great Keanu performance. Like you said, it was unique, but just to be able to see Diane and Jack again at the top of their game, or they've only really had a top, honestly, these guys. But it was fun. I'm glad I finally did see this. I think it's definitely the best version of a Nancy Meyers,
Yeah. This is up there, I
movie. I
think.
think this is her
This
best
is a
at
crowning
this.
achievement.
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah, and no wonder then
It's
she tried to like kind of replicate that a little, like sort of comedies for older people seem to be
Yeah.
the lane she was in for a while, which makes sense. I mean, after this,
Makes
of course,
sense.
you want
Yeah.
to try to like continue to hit that as opposed to comedies about, girls who have surprising cousins that are identical twins or whatever. Like, that's a Parent Trap reference, Lindsay Lohan.
Parent
I like
Trap.
that movie. That movie's fun. Lohan's good
That
in that.
movie is amazing too, I
Yeah.
think. No, I mean, yeah, I'm a big fan of hers. I think this is very hard to do such a thing that feels
Hmm.
effortless and funny and cozy, but also has depth and meaning, and to draw these kind of performances from these people as good as they are. This, like you said, each of these performances can become caricatures or over the top because it is over the top, but it can't be in the performance because then you would not believe it. So it's sort
Hmm.
of this perfect magic. And to bring it back to Keanu, the fact that he can stand toe to toe with these people, that's kind of huge. And
Hmm.
maybe he also had some growth from the Dracula days that okay, I'm in this movie, I'm gonna bring it. And I think we see a shade of this heartthrob in Good Fortune actually to bring it all the way back to our
Yeah,
current
yeah,
movie,
you're
you
right.
know?
Yeah, yeah, there is that a little bit. Like he's sort of like the hot, uh, you
Not so
know,
much how other people see him, but more like when he smiles, like the light in him, because there's a lot of light in him, which is often kind of marred because he's playing really sort of serious and action people, but there's like a light in him which you see in this one and you see it in Good Fortune as well.
yeah, that's like when he smiles, it makes me smile. And actually, most of the
Yeah.
movies we cover, Matrix, Speed, he's playing, and in Dracula, right? He's playing like serious kind of characters, and it's that going back to like my thought of him as Ted, that Ted Theodore Logan, where every time I see Ted, whatever he's doing, I was like, oh, I know it makes me
Hmm.
smile even thinking about him, and he can do that, and he was doing that in Good Fortune too, like for sure. Like I love when Keanu's like, yeah, cool. Like I love these nuggies. I love these chicken nuggies. Like that,
It's very
it always
cute.
makes you smile. That's the power of Keanu's, like that sincerity I think that he has, and that,
Yeah.
heart on his sleeve thing. It just, you love people that are that yeah, open about the joys of, things that they're experiencing. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of, what would you like to see him do next?
yeah, yeah, I was thinking about this, and especially after Good Fortune, and even going again back to Bill and Ted, of like I really do think he is a very good, comedy star too. And yes, he's great on action, and we've covered all these movies, and he's great at that. But yeah, I'd love to see him more in these like lighthearted, like the Something's Got to Give. We just talked about that, right? A sort of a lighthearted comedic performance, whether it is he's the lead or maybe he's a supporting character, kind of like in Good Fortune. I'd like to see him stay in that lane for a little bit. I mean, the John Wick stuff, he's again amazing in that, but it does take a toll. Like he's been
Hmm.
seriously injured at John Wick stuff.
I
At
bet.
Matrix 2 for a while, he had serious injuries, and like eventually you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't see him being an action star who doesn't do all these big stunt performances, because that's something that is so iconic to him. So it's maybe a good sort of phase of his career, much like Jack, as we were just talking about.
Mm.
The end of his career, other than like Departed, was a lot more of these like lighthearted, like The Bucket List and Something's Got to Give and As Good as It Gets and About Schmidt. Like that was where he sort of ended his career before his retirement, and maybe Keanu that's the phase that he should be in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something still has to give. And the sequel, maybe we follow where Keanu's character went in this, because he gets dumped at the end. So where maybe he's still in Paris and he met somebody else, and I want to hear what that's like.
Yeah, I mean that could be fun. Yeah, the Paris scene is great, by the way.
Yeah, it is. No, it
It's
is. And
an
yeah.
iconic scene, actually.
Oh, is it?
I
Okay.
feel similarly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that I don't think I don't want to do more action stuff. I want him to do something more lighthearted. What I don't want him to do is a self-memified character either. Like
Mm.
Good Fortune is a little bit always
Oh,
be
right. He
my
played himself in
maybe.
that. That was funny. He was actually
That was
really good in that. I
fun.
forgot about
I
that.
like
Yeah, yeah,
him,
yeah.
but I want him to do something which is an actual character. I think he
Hmm.
has it in him. Like,
Hmm.
do a character like Something's Gotta Give, which is not you at all. Transform just a little bit, but keep it in a lighthearted, comedic kind of, zone. In fact, when you said about Schmidt, it made me think of Alexander Payne. He would be an amazing
Oh,
person to work with, I think,
yeah,
at this
actually.
juncture
Yeah.
in Keanu's life,
No,
maybe.
totally, because Keanu does do a very good job of capturing like sort of a more average sort of. I mean, I know we
Yeah.
talk about that, but it's like John Wick's not average, and neither is Neo. But has that like everyday guyness to him, and that
Mm-hmm.
obviously is Alexander Payne. That's the the paint that he paints with is all these like
Right.
normal kind of guys, and I think Keanu easily could fit into that an Alexander Payne like movie and pull that off. Yeah, maybe
That'll be
he could
fun.
direct
And
something still gotta give, directed by and written by Alexander Payne. That's the movie we're starting to put together
and
here.
no more long hair. Get rid of it.
Oh, I like his long hair.
Get rid of it.
Oh.
Change.
Okay, maybe he could cut that for something still gotta give. Go back to the other shorter hair, but
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
was yeah, this is really fun. I think it was good to think back on. Yeah, just the guy that like I think of him and I always smile and makes me feel good to know that Keanu exists among us. He's such a unique sort of energy force and vibe that is just positive. Again,
Big
just going
vibes.
back to
Yeah.
the Bill and Ted thing of just party on and be excellent to one another. I think that is Keanu, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. Well, it's a fun episode. And that's the end of our episode. So as always, we are available here on YouTube, but all podcasting platforms. You can find us. Please like us or review us. Drop in a comment. Share your thoughts on Keanu or the movies that we covered. And all of this engagement activity obviously helps other people find us. So thank you for doing that. Until next time, bye.